And boom, it's Friday. Phil, I don't know what you've done to yourself. You look great.
Hey, what can I say? I had a
It's,
bath, I washed my
yeah.
hair, I've put
Uh-huh.
makeup on, and I've got
Yeah.
out of my pajamas.
This is
There.
Phil. It's like it's a whole new you. Oh, hang on a minute.
Poor Philip.
Oh,
Poor Philip.
that's embarrassing. Oh.
New glasses?
That's very no. I've got three pairs lined up in case I get bored. Welcome everybody. Yes, it's Friday. Don't have any music because we don't. And
Go on, tell them the truth. Tell them the truth. Why don't we?
Truth. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth. I had to get rid of Phil. He was just. I never liked him. I never really got on with it. No, Phil is actually working for. Well, Rupert Murdoch phoned him personally and said, "Phil, if there's any chance that you could possibly, please, can you just come into the radio station?" And Phil plays a hard game, but he said, "Roo," he said, "I'll see if I can drift by." So that's where he is.
I'll see if I can get Alex to sit in for me.
And he said, "Oh, look, Phil, I'll pay you a triple, but you just got to if you can get Alex to sit in." That's the worst. That is undoubtedly. Hello, Penny Horner.
The worst.
Penny Horner only worked a 13-and-a-half-hour day yesterday. Penny, I don't know how the hell you do it every day. Just extraordinary. And hello to you, Jeremy Brannan, as well. Good morning. Right. So anyway, so Phil's busy. And then all our other producers, one of them, it's their birthday. So they've gone to Berlin with 99 red balloons, presumably. I don't know. And
Cena's having a lovely time in Berlin.
Yeah, he's having a good time, Al Cena. And then sadly, our head of production is not at all well. And I only found out that she's really not well yesterday. So we wish Melis Ursulu absolutely a very, very speedy recovery. Fingers crossed from everybody at men's radio station, everybody at women's radio station as well. Ed Grossman, happy Friday, and hello, Alexandra.
Hello, Ed. Hey, listen, I showered and made up for all the lovely men on your show, not for you, Russell.
Dear God, oh please, send it back to the 19th. All that's missing is Benny Hill and some music, and Jackie Wright getting tapped on the top of the head. We've got your favorite blooming guests coming on today. In all seriousness, they are amazing guests. Dr. Khan is like, every time he comes on, he's a huge hit. And we're going to be drilling down all about COVID and everything else. He is an absolute expert. He's from Harley Street, and he is a big hit every time he comes on. And also Anna Hood, who came on, who was fantastic. Anna Hood was absolutely tremendous, and she's got all the facts and figures. I want to really, with Alex, talk about all that sort of stuff. We've got Andrea Lucas. Thank you, baked potato. Nice to see you last night on screen. I did a Zoom conference yesterday, and to my amazement, I'll be honest with you, I forgot all about it. In typical style, I completely forgot all about it. I came off the Ollie Mammon show, which was fascinating, with the GP, about why we don't prescribe cannabis in Britain, where, you know, loads of countries in the rest of the world for pain, they do. And I came off that, and I'd forgotten all about it. So I went straight from that into this Zoom conference, and 66 people were on the screen. I've never seen anything like it. 66 people. It was really fantastic. So anyway, is PG, Andrea, baked potato. Is Phil baking his? No, Phil. Phil. No, Andrew, I've had to get rid of Phil. I never really liked him. I tolerated him, but I got rid of him. He'll be back Monday. Martin Allen. I do like the new Phil. Hello.
Thank you, Martin. I'm very sorry I keep looking down, but my techno skills are crap, and I'm looking at everyone's notes on my phone, and I can't get it up on my laptop.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay, fine. Right, lovely. For me, this is broadcasting. For Alex, this is just like speed dating. I swear to God, this is just speed dating. This is just speed dating. But right, now, here's the thing. So the worry is that the person producing the entire 3 hours. Not a clue. Anyway, we'll do our best. Now, Alex, when we were speaking earlier this morning, when you were in hair and makeup and you're still in your Winnebago coming into your studio, you said you were absolutely livid. You haven't told me why, but apparently you're fuming. So we want to. I love a good row.
Oh yes. Well, I try not to swear. You know me and my swearing.
No, try not to. If you're possible. If Ollie Mammon, who has Tourette's, hang on. If Ollie Mammon, who has Tourette's, can get through every show without swearing, you can.
I know.
You can do it, right?
I look at LinkedIn most mornings and I read all the posts and some of the articles. I never ever comment. I might like something, but this morning, a lovely lady called Lisa Unwin, who is an author and an expert in careers for women, something for women's radio station.
Right. Oh, good.
Offline.
Get her on.
Posted an article from the times.co.uk. When I tell you the title of this was, "Your Get Up and Go will leave you by the time you're 54, aimed at women."
Your point?
My point is, you know how old I am?
Well, I have no idea how old you are. I don't know how old. How would I know how old you are?
It talked about drive, ambition, changing your life, finding better things to do, energy, everything. It said it was a research. The research wasn't bogus. They didn't use it properly, but the article, ridiculous, saying that women of a certain age have no drive, have no energy, don't challenge themselves. What a load of crap. She was very polite on LinkedIn and called it rubbish. I would go further to say it was incredibly misogynistic. You know,
Who wrote the article? Was it a man or a woman?
I don't know. I didn't go into it completely, but I didn't want to see who wrote it, actually. I would imagine it was a man. But
that kind of makes a bit of a difference, though, doesn't it, Alex? If it's a man or a woman.
But it's rubbish regardless, because one, I'm 57. Two, you know my high level.
Way too old.
My high levels of energy. I have probably more energy and drive than my two children put together, and so do a lot of my girlfriends. Apart from that, I have done more and accomplished more in the last 8 years than ever before. Changed my views on things, become a Samaritan, learnt new skills. It's just insulting. And the other underlying things, it's sort of intimated that we don't have a libido after 54. That is a load of crap. Just saying. But infuriated me, absolutely. And there's so many women out commenting how just utterly ridiculous that is.
What a stupid bloody article, though. Stupid.
And it didn't use the research properly. It's just not true. Shouldn't be allowed an article like that.
I think certain things should happen. Number one, in all seriousness, I think that you should track down who wrote it and get hold of them and get them on one of your shows. That's what I think you should do.
Yeah,
that's number one. And I think you should do that. And then secondly, do a little survey yourself. You know enough people. Ed Grossman, you have so pulled with Ed Grossman. 57, that's Heinz Varieties.
I love you, Ed.
Get a room, you two. Listen, and Andrea Lucas immediately coming back. What? Question mark. What? Yeah, madness. I'm still doing lots of stuff totally wrong. They can always interview me. You see, I wonder, we all know what clickbait is. Hello to my lovely cousin Francine Warner. Who if the entire Premier Division dropped by in North London, she could feed them all without any warning. Leave it to me, and then 30 seconds later, the table would be absolutely heaving. Michael. Right. Anyway, here's the thing. Right. I just wonder if some of these articles are just clickbait. Because it's a stupid thing. What are you writing off every woman over 54? I think, I honestly, I'd really do object to that. I
was incensed this morning.
I think you should try. Honestly, Alex, you've got the smarts, you've got the skills, you've got the contacts. Get hold of the writer and say, "You're an idiot. Come on my show and talk about it." Or just say, "Come on my show." Or get them on a Friday show and then you come on and we'll get them on a Monday or a Wednesday. I don't understand what they're trying to prove with that. You see, this is something that I have been, I know this is men's radio, but 50% of our audience are women. So go figure. It is what it is. And I'm very happy. Everybody's welcome. Obviously, we're not prescriptive about that. The same as everybody can listen to women's radio station. But the thing is this, this goes back to something that always drives me mad, and I talk about it a lot, which is the adverts on TV, like for skincare. Now, you've been very honest. You just said you're 57.
Mm.
You look great. I'm allowed to say that. I've known you forever.
Thank you.
Now, here's the thing, right? And they go, skincare, and you see some girl, she's doing all this, and you go, and I turn around, I go, she's about 19, this kid, maybe 17. I mean, some of the models in the past were literally 16. What a blooming ridiculous thing to have a girl of 19, 22, my skincare, because, you're not 40. It's ridiculous. And it sets completely unfair boundaries that, the lines are completely skewed. It's ludicrous there.
And that's something we can talk about with Dr. Kane, really, because it's a money-making machine, as you know.
Of course. Lichtenfeld, hi all. Sorry, I can't listen today. Flash mob in Trafalgar Square today, midday, then the biggie tomorrow. Lichtenfeld's doing a very clever thing. He's decided, in order to raise Lee, if you got a second, come. I don't think you can phone, because I don't even know which. God knows which phone will ring.
Yeah,
no idea which phone will ring. If my phone rings, I'll faint. He's doing a really good thing to promote West End theatre and musicals and all things to do with the arts in the West End, but mostly theatre, obviously. He's created this flash mob thing. I think that's great. As long as they're socially distanced, because we don't need that. But if they're socially distanced, I think it's a wonderful thing to highlight the crazy plight of the theatres, which is just shocking. I
figured out how I can read the comments, because I had it on private and now it's on not private.
Right.
I'm just a bit slow sometimes.
Okay. Is there another article coming up that women over 54 can't use the computer? Now, here's a good point. You see, an immediate retort from Andrea Lucas, which is why so many young people, especially girls, have body issues. Absolutely right, Andrea. I couldn't agree with you more. I don't care. I am what I am. I'm never going to have anything done to my face. If you don't like it, tough. It is. This is as good as it's going to get, right? I get that.
Interestingly enough, my daughter, who is 25, buys lots of things from ASOS, as a lot of people do. But she pointed something out to me the other day when I was looking at the photographs. They have stopped airbrushing all their pictures of the models. So and this isn't necessarily about face, but this is about body image. So you've got slim models showing off whatever item of clothing they're showing off, but they have not airbrushed stretch marks, because we all know, women know, that slim women also have stretch marks. It's not just a fuller figure thing. And everything is in there, which I think is absolutely fabulous.
Do you know what? I can't really argue with that. I can't really argue, especially when you see, when you know somebody. I mean, we know a lot of people, right? When you see a picture of them in the paper, you go, they don't look anything like that in real life. They're about, a stone heavier. They got their asses way bigger. Their thigh, we know them. And you see this and you go, that's not XYZ. And it's so. Now, in fairness to the celebs, not in the model, not in the catalogs and stuff like that, but in fairness to the celebs in the paper, they don't go to the newspaper or the magazine and say, I want to be airbrushed. They don't do that. It's down to the picture editor. It's down to the editor and everybody else. All right.
Well, mind you, in the newspapers, they're more likely to not airbrush a celebrity and point out all their frailties, which I also think.
No. We know certain ones, which I'm not going to name, and frankly, you know them in real life, and you think, they don't bloody look anything like that. Happy Friday to you. I can't do your spooky music, Eve Phantom, but I'm just going to go crazy name, crazy gal.
Or anything.
I can't do that, because the reason being, it's a technical thing. Phil has the great big professional desk at Phil Dave Towers, and I don't. So there we are. Anyway, so happy Friday to you, Eve Phantom. Ed Grossman, have you noticed how many young people have bad skin? Not really. No, I don't particularly. That's probably because they eat a lot of junk. They eat a lot of rubbish, but it is very unfair, and without doubt, it all links into social media, which I know is a huge bugbear. It's as good as it is evil, and people who are looking at TikTok. I don't get involved in TikTok. I've enough to do with what I'm doing, but etc. etc. And they do have body images, and sometimes the ultimate end game of this is they commit suicide, which is just terrible. It is terrible. These kids feel such pressure on them, and it's so unfair. It's awful. Somebody yesterday, it was their granddaughter, I think it was their granddaughter, and it was an 11th birthday. I don't know the family. I just happened to see the pictures up on Facebook, and I thought, maybe I'm just getting old. Well, and I thought, you're 11, you're dressed. What's going on there? I'm trying to moderate my words, Alex, because I'm being careful here because it's so tricky these days. But this kid's 11 years old, and I thought she was dressed in a way you think, is that appropriate?
It's not. She's 11. Appropriate. Be 11. Have some childhood. I think it's absolutely dreadful. I hate it. Absolutely.
This is the thing. Ed Grossman, want to laugh? Look at Gwyneth Paltrow. Look at Gwyneth Paltrow in Ultra HD and make all the girls feel a lot better. Larry Viner, he's so low key. Larry, how are you? Haven't seen you in ages. Thank God. Larry, you look better in real life, Russ Kane. However, you wearing a mask and hiding under the tape.
You shouldn't have read it.
That's just rudeness. That's just rudeness from Boy Viner.
We talk about body image for girls.
Yes.
Russ, you're talking about young girls, but what about? This is a men's radio station. What about young boys? I don't know enough about how they feel. I know young men, it's a very high suicide rate, but that isn't always to do with the body image.
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm going to say that it is more prevalent with young girls who are much more conscious of their body. But when you've got stuff like, all right, these are shows I know they're popular. I won't touch them with the barge pole because I'm not interested. Like Love Island and all these things where the guys have all got perfect physiques. Well, that's why they're on the show, obviously. And I know then guys think, well, everyone's got to look like. Well, you can't all look like that. It's
not everyone does look like that. It's the
not everyone can be 5'10" as a girl, and size whatever. Not every bloke can be 6 foot.
Never had that.
Yeah, well, there you go. Now, Andrea Lucas. This is really very difficult. Would you like to read this out? It's more. I'm a bit embarrassed. Would you mind reading it out?
Some parents dress their children as jailbait, and they wonder why they get abused.
It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. I really have come down quite. I'm not being hard about you, Andrea. I think. No parent would dress their children, let's use the word provocatively, let's keep it neutral, perhaps inappropriately, and deliberately put them out for nefarious purposes. I think that's right. Now, Ken Elm, I'm going to read this first. But Russ, the 18-year-old girl is chewing gum for men's eyes. Oh, not always, Ken Elm, to be honest with you. No different than clickbait, just aimed another section of the audience. It's all to attract advertising. Oh, totally so. Totally so.
Yeah, I agree with that. I also agree with Andrew's next comment. She said lots suffer from anorexia, but because they are male, they don't say anything. And I agree with that.
Yeah,
that's also that macho stigma thing, which is still out there, and that you can't really talk. And Russ knows I talk about this on my show. People have got to start talking, and people just got to ask for help, whatever they're asking for help for, even if they're young boys. But it will change. I'm very positive about that.
Why do you think that? Why do you think that?
We will make it change, because the more people that understand that men need to talk. And I deal with men's groups and support groups across the country, and there are more and more men realizing themselves that they have to start talking about their problems, and it will not be stigmatized. Very difficult. It's very difficult for them to know how to even start the conversation, which is probably where the root of the problem can come from.
Now, I know that you can't discuss specifics. about
Yeah.
your work with the Samaritans.
Yeah.
But in general terms, during this god-awful year, has there been an increase in the demand for the Samaritan services?
It's always high, as you know, really high. Yes, there has, but there's been an awful lot more emails. I don't know if everyone knows about Samaritans, that people can call in, they can text now, and they can also email. The emails have gone out the window because it's huge numbers, because a lot of people are now stuck in home with other people, and they can't get on the phone and talk privately. So emails is huge, and a lot of suicidal emails coming through.
When you get, can you walk me through the mechanics of this?
I shall try my best.
You get an email from some man, woman, child, it obviously in distress. You've just used the phrase, it's a suicidal email. What do you do?
We ask them to talk. It's on email, but we still say talk. We ask about how they're feeling. We cannot give advice, you know that. We're not allowed to, which, as you might know, very difficult for me and very foreign for me. But you learn and you're taught how to read between the lines of an email coming through, or even a conversation, and you pick on the one thing that they might say, and you ask them to, if they're comfortable, to explain that more, to elaborate more, to keep them talking, to get them to talk about themselves and how they're feeling. So it might be I'm anorexic, or I have anxiety, or I don't want to leave the house, or so it would be something like, tell me more about your anorexia. How long have you had it? So you keep them talking. You're not stopping them from doing what they might do, but you want them to talk. And the fact that they're emailing you or calling you, people want to talk and not be judged.
And what is the time? What is the time? I know this sounds slightly specific, but I have a reason for my question. What is the time lag between they get an email and it's acknowledged and responded to?
The maximum, it's meant to be 24 hours, absolute max, but it can be immediately. And it's not the same person. That's a problem with email. It is not, and also it's not the same person responding to each of the replies. It can go anywhere, to any branch across the UK. So different Samaritans will be replying. And it's very much taken care of in the T's and C's of the email loop. But yes, it can be slightly slower than somebody calling. But sometimes it can be immediate. I can see an email and someone will have, during my 4-hour session, and see that someone had sent one an hour ago somewhere else, and I pick it up.
So does it go to a central repository? I'm just curious, because I totally understand, as anybody else would, you get a phone call, you answer the phone call. But the emails could be, sometimes I find stuff sitting in my email inbox. I go, oh my God, it's been there for, and people must think I'm rude. I've just missed it.
It's not like that. There is a central place where the emails go. You log on in your branch during your session, and you say you're going to respond to emails, and emails come up. It's very, very cleverly specifically done, automated, and you just go next email. You click, once you've replied to one, you go to next email, and it could be any email. And the beauty for email is that it could be from anybody all over the world, anyone.
Right. So if somebody sends something in Newcastle upon Tyne, you can answer it in London. It makes no difference. It doesn't have to go to a local branch.
It goes the exact same with a phone call. It is a central branch, and somebody from Scotland could get me in Watford, which I have had many times. It's very, very difficult to understand sometimes.
It must be tricky. By the way, I want to say hello to Paul Claridge. Paul Claridge is he's showing off a little bit here, Alex. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Good morning. I've got lots going on today, so may have to miss bits of the show. Paul, let's just be honest. Let's just have a reality check. 1, you're usually up a ladder. 2, if you're not up a ladder, you're getting the crap beaten out of you when you try and hand out nice things in East Croydon. 3, you're clearly a mole for the police against the Eastern European drug gangs. That is your day. That's your whole day there, right? That is it.
I want to go back to Andrea, because she's absolutely right. I'm going to go back up a little bit, because she says about wearing clothes, not deliberately allowed to dress provocatively, but allow their children to wear stuff because all my friends are wearing it, mum, dad, and because parents are often busy, it's anything for a quiet life. it isn't. I don't think it's about the fact that we're busy and quiet life, but I think it is very difficult to stop a kid, and they're very vocal, very verbal, as we all know. I hope that and very their willpower is unbelievable, and it's very difficult to say no to your child when she said, "But my friends are. I'm going to be," you worry that they're then going to be picked on for not wearing the same kind of clothes. It's terribly.
So it all leads. It all intrinsically is linked to the bullying culture.
But it's also linked to the media and what people say is acceptable in the media. And going back to your point about what what's shown and what isn't shown, if in the media it was shown that it's really cool to be a kid, maybe more kids will be kids or kid-like. You know what I mean?
Well, you made a very interesting point. Well, you made loads, but this one you said, please allow children to have a childhood.
Mm.
It seems to me, all right, that childhood kind of finishes when you're 5. It's almost like by the time you're 7, you're heading towards being a teenager. Part of that, without doubt, is that every little child, I mean tiny child, is completely tech savvy. You won't find a child in 2020. You won't find a child in 2020. I hope that's a martini. Who is not able to work an iPad, who's not able to work mum and dad's phone, who's not able to work the laptop. Every little tiny child, and it gets younger and younger. It's almost as though they were born with the tech knowledge inside their DNA. It's an amazing thing. That's very different from playing with dolls and playing cowboys and Indians and all this sort of,
getting dirty and getting muddy.
Yeah. I think a lot of that.
I have friends who, younger friends to me who have younger children, and they have dinner, and then the kids go up to their rooms and go on the PlayStation or go on the laptop. As opposed to winter, it's more difficult. I just remember having dinner and going outside, climbing trees and falling off them. I was a little bit of a tomboy, but riding my bicycle. Very difficult to insist that your kids do that, because then they think you're a terrible parent.
But there again, when I was a kid, 8 million years ago, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, when I was a kid, my greatest thrill was to pack a sandwich and a soft drink, like an orange squash, and get on my Rally 24-inch bike and disappear for the day on my own. Yeah. I was so happy. But these days, you wonder, well, if my kid gets on a bike and disappear, I don't know how old I was, 7, 8. I was no older than that. Maybe I was 7, maybe I was 8, but no older than that. Could have been 6. And I'd disappear for the day and cycle around, and I'd just find somewhere and have my little lunch on my own and everything. I loved it.
You, were they?
Couldn't give up monkeys. I couldn't give up monkeys.
Different world, even when I was younger.
But my point is, would you as a parent now be really happy with your 7-year-old out on a bike? Well, I'll see you at the end of the day. And you think, would I? Would I do that anymore?
My kids used to ride outside the house all the time, but I wouldn't want them to go further. Because, gosh, I remember when Annie first went on a train into London. I think she was 13. I wouldn't let her go before then.
Well, worrying sometimes. I see. I don't know which is the right and which is the wrong. But when I've said to some people, when I was little, and supermarkets were just starting. The first one I think was McFisheries, which you wouldn't know, but they had fish. There wasn't. I don't think it was even. There wasn't Tesco's. There was Sainsbury's and McFisheries. I think McFisheries eventually became one of the big brands. And everybody in those days, they didn't have buggies. They had those big prams, like the royal family had, but they had big prams because buggies were not I don't think buggies had even been invented. And everyone would just leave the pram outside the shop. And I've told people this, and they go, "No, you're misremembering." And I'm going, "I'm not misremembering."
No, you're not. I remember that. Chrissy Holt's agreeing with you. She said, growing up, I didn't have a problem because no phones, etc. We played out all day. I rode miles too, Russ.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And making God, I sound like an old fart. But I remember, with my pal, we'd make like soapbox carts, the little go-karts out of wood and old pram. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. Paul Claridge, this is a gruesome message from our pal Paul. Would you like to read it, Andrea? Because it's much more to what you do.
Did you just call me Andrea?
I did call you Andrea because I was looking down and seeing, and I was seeing Andrea Lucas asking Chrissy how's Spain. I'm so sorry. God, I've only known you 35 years. I think I probably know your name by now. Go
on. Paul says a few days ago, the London Ambulance Service posted this stark message on social media. Sadly, the number of suicides and attempted suicide incidents we attend are increasing. Our crews now attend an average of 37 suicides or attempted suicides per day, compared to 22 in 2019 and 17 5 years ago. Horrendous.
That is just shocking.
Horrendous.
We need to let that sink in. Paul, this is absolutely shocking. Our crews now attend 37 suicides or attempted suicides a day. 22 in 2019, 17 5 years ago. I have to say, all credit to Phil Dave, because when we started doing this, when all this madness started, sort of late February, early March, we closed the studios in Covent Garden because it just wasn't safe. And then 2 weeks later, lockdown came down. So we were ahead of the curve. We'd always said, and Phil led with this, and I had no disagreement with this point, that one of the worst side effects, without doubt, of COVID would be mental health. That the demand the demand on mental health services, and the low and depression and all the other mental health issues was going to skyrocket, and it has.
Yeah,
and it will continue to do so. It will continue to do so.
The statistics, I think, from the Samaritan. So this post was saying 37 suicides or attempted suicides. Actual suicides a day, I think, not attempted, but actual, is 18 a day now. That's actual suicides.
18 a day.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Which is.
How do I get rid of that? I have no idea how I get rid of that now. Oh, there we go.
How did you get it there in the first place?
It's God knows. God knows. You know what I'm like. I'm inquisitive. That's what always gets me.
Still playing with it somewhere.
It's a serious trouble. Always too inquisitive. Too inquisitive. Chrissy Holt in Spain. We made bows and arrows and played cowboys and Indians. Oh God, the PC police would be knocking on your door, arresting you.
Play Kiss Chase.
You used to play what? Kiss Chase.
Don't you remember that, Russ? I didn't play Kiss Chase with you. You're a bit older than me.
No, well, you know, another regret. No, I never played. I never played Kiss Chase. No, I was at the. You're kidding. No, I never played. No. Right, what we got going? Now this is Ken Elm's point, and I wonder if this is it's a very contentious point. I was saying, would you let your kid go out on the bicycle all day and leaving your kids out in the pram when you went into McFisheries and the early Sainsbury's? Ken Elm Janur, who, if you don't know, is one of Fleet Street was one of Fleet Street's top journalists at a very senior level. There weren't so many predators around back in the day. I don't know. Maybe it just wasn't spoken of. I genuinely don't know. Maybe it wasn't spoken about, and now it's out in the open. It's like lifting a rock and seeing the crawling yuck that's underneath. Grooming gangs are an imported problem in most recent times.
That I would agree with. Actually, I'm not sure about the first statement because we will never know, will we?
We'll never ever know. I remember I was at a dinner party back in the day, many years ago. Back in the day when people had dinner parties, it was part of the social mix, wasn't it? And there was an American woman. I didn't know who she was. She was sitting next to me, and she kept going on about child abuse and everything else. And I kept thinking, the hell's this woman talking about? And I realized decades later, that she was absolutely right. It just wasn't spoken about.
No, but if you look at child abuse in certain religions, and there have been films about it, I'm not going to go into it in too much detail, but I hate to say this or even bring his name up, we just look at Jeffrey Epstein. That was a long time, a lot of abuse for a very long time, going back, way back.
Yeah. And
I'm just saying, I think that, just picking up the first point, I think there have always been predators.
Oh, undoubtedly so.
Always.
Undoubtedly so.
But the grooming thing is quite horrible.
I got a question. I was just thinking about the Ghislaine Maxwell thing. I mean, that's going to be a bombshell, because I was reading some of the testimonials, and her legal team were trying to keep a lot of stuff out, obviously, and it was not permitted, and it had to go in. I'm not going to go into it now, but you can read it. You can read it yourselves. It makes a Jackie Collins novel look like Enid Blyton, and so that takes ages. But I was just wondering, unless I've missed it, what happened to it's a complete random thought. What happened to the Johnny Depp trial? Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. There hasn't been a result. How long does it take to sort this out?
I thought he got
did I miss it? Did I miss the verdict of that?
Please, I'm fairly sure he got exonerated. It was all rubbish.
Could somebody help us with that? Paul Andrews, are you not meant to play Kiss Chase in later years then? I
ignored that comment. I did read it.
I must apologize to the wife. Mrs. Andrews, I don't know whether Paul drives you mad when you're there with the Hoover, you're trying to do a little bit of dusting and he's driving you crazy. On behalf of Men's Radio Station, you lucky dog.
Yeah, you lucky, definitely.
Yeah, Ed Grossman, you should stand still and let her catch up. I think after 35 years, it's a little bit late for that, Ed. Also with Chrissy Holt, also with priests. Media brings into the news more. Yeah, here's the thing. We slam the media a lot for what they do. And then you think, well, hang on a minute. They do expose these things. They do show what's really going on, and we shouldn't be living in a fool's paradise, is I think what I'm trying to think and say. It should be exposed. It's so wrong. It's so evil. And the thing is, people are not believed. This is the thing. People are not believed, and it takes years sometimes, to be exonerated, and it gets years for people to say, you were right, we're so sorry. Russ, what is this? Now this was no, Ed Grossman. The Johnny Depp verdict is next week, and Ramsey says the outcome. See, I can do this. I can show that. Look. See, the outcome, this is so sophisticated. The outcome on Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard is announced next week.
Yes, I was just reading it.
Question. Why has it taken? It's got nothing to do with mental health. Well, actually, it's got everything to do with mental health.
Well, there's a quote here saying Johnny Depp's libel lawsuit is wrapped up after 3 weeks of graphic testimony in which the star admitted to years of drug abuse, but denied beating his ex-wife Amber Heard.
Yeah.
So I have no idea. So we'll know next. It said before September, but clearly they've extended it.
Well, I guess there's a backlog. Now, this was something that came up yesterday, and I am going to talk about it just for a second, if I can, Alex. It's from Chrissy Holt. Now, she's reporting, she says, Russ, after offloading onto poor Oliver last night, I'm feeling happier today, i.e. my daughter. Now, what happened yesterday?
Yeah.
It was on the Ollie Mammon show, which I just moderate on. It's called the ABC of CBD. It's all about cannabinoids, and it's a fascinating show. I have learnt loads. And Ollie, and we had a GP on as well. It was really good. And Dr. Leon Bannon. And there was a quote. There was just a casual remark about heroin. About heroin compared to CBD oils, etc., etc. And Chrissy got understandably very upset because in the lockdown, Chrissy's daughter is on heroin. And it's breaking her heart, as you can well understand. And I thought it was a very emotional message that Chrissy posted last night. And you feel so bad. It is horrible as a parent to watch a child go through anything, and addiction is just one of the things that you pray will never hit your family, but it hits so many. I lost when I was very little. I had a unlike my family, I had a very handsome cousin. He was going to be a professional tennis player. He was very tall, very blonde, lovely boy. And he died from heroin. And I was very young at the time, maybe 9, 10, no more than that, I don't think. And he was sort of training to be a professional tennis player, which for my family is, believe me, ridiculous, but amazing. And it was such a salutary lesson, because I always liked this guy. I kind of looked up to him because he was handsome and sporty, and he was very charming. And heroin took him. And from that day to this, I've never drugs. I've avoided them like the plague.
Tell me something. Like was it something that Ollie said to Chris, or maybe Chrissy can tell us, that has helped her, or was it just the fact that she was able to offload?
To be upset. I don't like any of our listeners to be upset. And obviously it touched enough. And it wasn't a joke. It was just a very casual, in-passing remark. And I think that I'm second guessing here, which I don't like to do. Chrissy Holt in Spain, in the middle of your farm with your tractors. I think she felt better that she'd got it off her chest.
Yes,
I think it's better. Sometimes you just need to say, you need to say stuff. You need to just, get it out there, because otherwise it just builds up and builds up and builds up. Yeah. I'm surprised.
Chrissy, I'm sending you much love from here.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard, especially because you're in Spain. I'm guessing your daughter is not in Spain. I don't know. That's just a guess on my part. But it's just it's absolutely horrible. Same as if you watch your kids going through depression, or God forbid, suicide. And how you bounce back. I don't think you ever can bounce back. No, as I always say, when somebody kills themselves, for them, their anguish is over, and for the family, their anguish is just beginning, and it's a lifetime sentence. It will. I can't imagine it would ever go.
That's an interesting point, because 2 weeks ago I had a guest on my show who talked about being a survivor of suicide. Her mother took her life in 2014, and as you say, there's a whole. We can't walk in the shoes of those who take their life, and I don't think we should. It's horrific and the darkest place you can possibly be when that happens. But she talks about being a survivor of suicide, and I think that's a really important topic to talk about, because how do you get through that? And also, we know statistically that, unfortunately, a lot of survivors of suicide end up taking their own life too. And
really?
Yeah, that's a statistic through the Samaritans, which is very, very scary, actually. But
so just expand on that for a second.
Well, I don't know enough about it to expand on it, other than the fact that it is not uncommon for somebody in the family of someone who has taken their life to ultimately take their own life.
Chrissy's come back. She says this. I can put
Do you want me to read it?
Whoa, off you go. Look at that.
What's it say? I like Oliver, and it helps talking to someone outside family and friends. He's understanding. All of you are. Okay. If I went to the UK, what could I do? Okay.
Nothing. Nothing you can do. Nothing. It takes. I would imagine, Chrissy, it takes professionals. It's what can you do? Sit there, wring your hands, be upset. Would it make a difference? Probably not. Probably not. That's that is the thing. Now, something occurred to me. We had the big political hoo-ha. I'm not going into the politics of it. I'm just not going to walk into that minefield, because once I start, I won't be able to stop.
Well, you know, by starting, you're going to start something. So
no, I'm not. No. I'm making it a much broader. I'm making it a much broader thing.
Go for it, Russ.
So somebody yesterday was suspended, not expelled. It's only suspended. Let's be clear. Suspended from the Labour Party, had the whip withdrawn, etc., etc., etc. Let's not get into the rights and wrongs of it. I think everyone can second guess my views and Alex's views, and Phil was here. It'd have steam coming out of his ears. Now, the thing is this. The thing is this. The person who has been suspended, not expelled, and had the whip withdrawn is completely unrepentant, and no apology. In fact, the opposite of apologizing, has started a fund to fight this legally. Okay, all right. That's
very, very defensive. Makes me wonder why.
Let's just park that on the back burner for a second. And it got me thinking this morning when I was musing over the show. Do you know people who are so in denial of what they've done? There's obviously a psychological name for this. I don't know what it is. Bloody liar might be one of them. But people who are so in denial of what they've done and will insist that black is white, or white is black, or blue is green, doesn't matter. They will never back down, even when the truth is shown quite clearly, when the truth is shown with no margin of debate. And I just wonder if anybody listening now has had that happen to them, because it must be, especially like in relationships. That's what I was thinking. I wanted to widen that particular conversation out. I didn't want to get it into politics, because we try and avoid politics, but politics does not help our mental health. That's the fact.
No, it doesn't. It makes it worse. I've experienced that. I can't go into too many details. So you've got me there experiencing it. Yeah, somebody in denial in a relationship, denial that they were addicted to anything, and water in a bottle can look like, or vodka in a bottle can look like water.
Oh yes, absolutely.
So yeah, me drinking it, saying, "Freaking vodka." No, it's not. Denial.
Oh really? Up to as bad as that?
But that is then someone who is troubled and struggling in themselves, without question. Yes. I don't know about the aforesaid mentioned person, whether they're struggling. I don't think so.
They're not struggling. They haven't. No. I don't think they've got mental issues. I think there's just it's just incredible. It's just incredible when you're just totally in denial.
Yeah.
Ed Grossman, there's a name for it. It's called hot wired. Is that right, Ed? Is that right? Essex Adventure. I have these tendencies. Ooh. Okay. But hang on, just put it up. I have these tendencies, but I've learned to see others' point of view and accept when I'm wrong. That is a huge deal. It really is. I think that's the point. It's like, if you're wrong, I mean, I'd like to think when I screw up, I go, I've messed up.
Oh, you and me both. It's much easier.
What are you going to do? I'm really sorry. I've screwed up. You want to shout, scream, okay. But I'm not going to try and weasel my way out of it. If I screw up, I screw up. That's it. It's part of being grown up. You accept the fact you've made a mistake. So it's amazing when you have done something which is so pernicious and you just won't accept it. Right. Let's just see this from Ken Elm.
Want to read that?
Yes.
Quite the worst side of grooming gang story was the silence from police and city officials for fear of being called racist. Thousands of young girls were abused all over this country, and it's still happening now. It's horrific.
It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it? It is an extraordinary thing when I think it's bullying. I think it is bullying when you're not allowed to say. Now, clearly, it wouldn't have mattered who was doing this. All right, these are gangs, so they could have been. Say it was Australian gangs. It wasn't, obviously, but I'm just picking a stupid example. Just say these were all Australians who'd emigrated to the UK and they had grooming gangs, right? They would have been called out. They would have been called out, or they came in from Austria or anywhere. I don't know. They would have been called out. But it seems to me that it's the bullying that you dare not say anything. You dare not say anything because you will be accused of X or Y or Z. And it covers a vast raft of areas.
Essex Adventure meant it says something a good thing. Now, can I click on this, or is it only you that can
No, it's only me, I'm afraid.
Click on it. For me.
Hang on. Oh, yeah.
I viewed being wrong as a sign of weakness. And
Wow.
I'm very interested to know what they think now about that, because it's not being wrong as a sign of weakness. Admitting that you're wrong, people think is a sign of weakness, but I think it's a sign of strength. It's completely the opposite.
I don't think it's weakness at all. I'm calling you Essex Adventure. It's a ridiculous thing. It's being wrong or being told that you're wrong. It's not a sign of weakness. It's an opportunity for you to look at it, which takes time and it takes effort, and you've got to be a kind of big person to do it and go, you know what? Well, now I've considered it. You're right, and you're right, and I was wrong.
Russ, there's being right and wrong about something specific, and then there's having an opinion that is different to someone else. That is not a right or wrong situation. So
look at this from Ed. People who consider themselves victims, we know who we're talking about here, and I've got to say, Ed, I totally agree with you. Never accept that they're wrong. And it is amazing when bullies, and this was shocking bullying, this was some disgraceful behavior under any circumstances from any side of the house, disgraceful, and never accept they're wrong, and would just deny that it's happening. And I take my hat off to Rachel Riley. I take my hat off to Tracy Ann Oberman and so many others who were pilloried, brutally pilloried for
vile, actually. I mean,
years.
Not nice.
For years. And they stuck to their guns. But it opened up another thing, and I wonder what everyone thinks about this, that many people who were pilloried and bullied, like Tracy Ann Oberman, like Rachel Riley, they say, you know what? People came up to me in the industry, especially acting, in the acting entertainment, and they came up to me and they said, we agree with you, but we don't want to say anything in public because it'll hurt our careers, but we agree with you. Jeez. Where do you stand on that? It's you can't put yourself in other people's shoes, but you know, wow. Kind of nice. It would have been nice if they'd have supported them. It's no point sidling up to someone going, I agree with you, but you know, you take all the flack and I'll keep getting my income for acting.
And that's one of the biggest problems, though. People don't speak out for other people, particularly in those instances. And I don't know what the fear is, really.
The fear is you don't want to end up getting bullied in such a horrendous way as Tracy Ann Oberman and Rachel Riley and many, many others did.
But they wouldn't. I mean, I don't believe
Luciana Berger.
The more people that speak up, the less bullying will happen, because you become a bigger crowd of people.
You got to be brave. I mean, I don't know if like Lawrence Fox, who's now started his own political party called Reclaim. I think it's called Reclaim, which kind of sounds a bit like a recycling plant. But you know, he's done that. He got absolutely castigated after he appeared on Question Time. Castigated. And you've got to be brave. That is brave, a brave thing. Now, some people say it's ridiculous, and some people loathe him. I mean, you know, the vitriol that goes around him. I don't know how you build a skin thick enough not to just want to disappear under the duvet and hide there for ages. So,
that's also something that aforementioned person has an unbelievable thick skin. who we're talking about that we're not mentioning?
Well, I'm trying to keep it out of politics and into the more general. You know what I'm saying here, into the more general, into the more general thing. It is very interesting when somebody paints themselves as a victim. It is quite fascinating. There are victims. I mean, they're real victims. But when you paint, when you've been the perpetrator, when you have been the instigator, you've been the architect of this, and then, oh, I'm a victim. No, you're not.
Woe is me.
Woe is me. Poor old me. Yet, you've started something which was unprecedented. It was just shocking. Absolutely shocking. And it's this thing of it's always someone else's fault. This is so pervasive in society.
Sign of weakness, though, Russ. Actually, thick skin is one thing, but weakness, just weak individual.
Barefaced liar is one of the things. But why is it weakness? Why is it weakness?
Weak as in weak in terms of not weak against strength, but weakness because he's a weak. Oh no, I can't even say it. I'm going to get in weak, slimy, that kind of weak.
I don't know why you're still dating him, to be honest. I don't get it. Sure, the attractive. Ken Elgin-Orr's back again. Castigated. We're talking back to Lawrence Fox, who I ran into, oddly enough, the other day. Castigated by many in his own profession, sad to say.
Yeah.
Well, Ken Elm, what do they want? They want to still be on TV and employed in the theatre. And Lawrence probably won't be. He knows that now. And there's a lot of very, very interesting YouTube channels where I watch him and I just interested to learn. I'm not saying I'm for, I'm not saying I'm against. I just like to learn. And there's some very, very interesting conversations that he has. And he has to be brave. He has to be bold. And he has to be very thick-skinned. I couldn't do it.
No, I couldn't do it.
I don't think I could do it.
What have you learned specifically from it? Listening, I haven't watched any of his YouTube stuff at all.
Lawrence, he just is going to plow on. Lawrence Fox is just going to plow on with his beliefs and try and get what he sees as some balance and some sense against. It's essentially against all the woke PC brigade, against all of that. I think that. Right, Essex Adventure is a good point. Bullying by the media still continues. Absolutely. So for headlines and clickbait, remember Caroline Flack. You see, that was a tragedy. Was I a huge fan? It's irrelevant whether I'm a fan or not. She was a young person, all of life ahead of her, a huge cash cow for the ITV.
Yeah, very talented woman, actually. Very talented.
And had her demons. Well, everyone's got demons. She had her demons. But, there she won. She won. Did she win Strictly? She won Strictly as well, didn't she?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was in Chicago. She was really very talented. And I think a lot of people were jealous of her as well. But there's a film out called, I Made This For You. You can look it up on YouTube. And thinking about Caroline, a lot of people came out saying wonderful things about her. I know there was negative stuff after she took her life. And this film, I Made This For You, is a fictional film, but it's about a group of friends who make a video for a friend of theirs who they believe is suicidal. And they send this to him because he won't answer their calls or anything else. And it's all about them posting this, giving him this video and what they are saying to him before he does something that they don't want him to do. But that, everyone should say all those things that they feel about someone truly way before anything really bad happens. If they feel that they were troubled, so go and talk to them, go and speak to them, ask if they're okay, ask if you can do anything, tell them how wonderful you think they are. Don't wait until they're gone to say something nice. That, that's the point of the film.
I never get the point. I never get the point about I never get the point. Oh, I can see our first guest, one of the most popular guests on Men's Radio, in the digital green room. I've improved the catering. Phil's catering was rubbish in there. I've got a whole buffet going on, silver service. It's all very, very nice. Let me just deal with Ed Grossman's thing.
Yeah.
Ed, you're absolutely right. I saw Lawrence Fox on Question Time. He was set up with a loaded question. You know it. And the one thing I do want to say is those are not random people in that audience. This whole myth, these are just random people in the audience. And they just happen to answer. No, they're not. So many of them.
We know that.
It's set up. I am very excited for our first guest. And I know loads of you are going to have loads of questions. Let's try it now. All I got to do is work out how the hell to do this. Ladies and gentlemen,
yay! Well done.
is in the house.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very well, Russ. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. You are without doubt one of our most popular guests on Men's Radio. Every time you appear, I have to say that the reaction is always absolutely fantastic. How are you coping, first of all, with all of this ghastliness of 2020?
I think it's difficult for everybody. What we've done in our practice is to put in really robust COVID safety protocols, which we review on a regular basis. We keep upgrading them. So we are able to see our patients in a safe environment. But it does, of course, means that we're opening up and we're only seeing a fraction, we're seeing less than a third of the people we would normally see. So,
right. Dr. Khan, can I be really boring? No change there. Could you possibly turn your phone so instead of portrait, it's landscape? That would be so.
Yay.
That's fantastic. Thank you. We can see you in all your splendor and glory. There we are. And thank you, Ed, for pointing that out. You're quite right. So you're seeing what, a third less now? Are you saying?
No, we're seeing two-thirds less. So where our group is much less. But I mean, as with any adversity, there are opportunities to find your way through it. And certainly what we've done is we've started to work differently. So we're triaging people, we're seeing people virtually, we're having consultations like this. We're using FaceTime and WhatsApp, video and Zoom to be able to talk to patients before they actually come in. And we're getting patients coming in who are more targeted. They've already made a decision to come in and see us rather than just that initial exploration for information. So we can have that initial consultation, and then we can see the patients in a very safe environment. And and what we've recently done is brought in sanitizing equipment so people can actually come inside the building and sit within a waiting room, socially distanced, of course, but we've got a system which kills viruses within the atmosphere that we're breathing. So there's been a great opportunity for technological companies also to start to develop these safety technologies which we're able to use. So it hasn't stopped.
So what is this equipment? What is this equipment that you've got in what is the equipment that you've got in the waiting room? What is that? Because I've not heard of that before, and that sounds terrific.
Yeah, it's called SaniSafe, and it's based on two types of technologies that kill viruses. One is ultraviolet C. Now, the problem with ultraviolet C is that it doesn't get very far from its source. So we have to take the atmosphere into a unit so that there is a circulation of the atmosphere and continuously circulating and passing the atmosphere that we're breathing past high-level UVC system which kills viruses, and that's known as photo reduction of the virus. So it interacts with the virus, it breaks down the capsule, the coat, and it breaks down the DNA. At the same time, the UVC is interacting with oxygen in the air and creating low levels of ozone. And this is why in the summer we have ultraviolet light, and we have ozone in our atmosphere, which reduces viruses. And the ozone is at a very safe level at about 0.3 parts per million, which is safe for humans to be in and animals to be in the environment, but it's at a virus killing level. So we're also getting chemo reduction of the virus. So the ozone is interacting with the virus at a chemical level, and the light is interacting with the virus at a photonic level, which is a light level. And these are systems that are being used in hospitals now, and we've brought them into our clinic to use just to have that extra layer of security.
I'm
That's
assuming,
fantastic.
well, without going into the actual cost, I'm assuming something like that is very, very expensive.
No, it doesn't have to be. We're going to use it at home, you know, and our patients are buying them as well. You're looking at about £7.99, £800 for a unit, and I mean we're putting one at home because we've got our grandchildren there, and we're going to put it in an environment. We're going to put it in the entry sort of room, where that room is going to be clear. So when they come in, yes, we're still going to wash our hands and do all the other things which are really important. But then as they walk through that environment, the rest of the house is protected as well.
So how long would, it always makes you think of a spaceship when you've got an airlock. How long are they going to have to stay in that entry area before your family come in? They have to stand there for a while? Or?
Well, they're walking into a clean environment, and you know the sort of sanitization process. You know, a couple of minutes within that environment. You know, the ozone will interact with any viruses that are on us. But if we're washing our hands and we're taking off our jackets, as you know, as we normally do with what we've been advised to do, then the rest of the house is safe. So if you know if there's anything getting into the air. One of the sort of, we know that it's dangerous if we cough on somebody, if we're carrying the virus and we cough the particles. But in an environment where we've screened people, they haven't had contact. Contact tracing is reducing the number of people who are known to have the virus from entering the society now. So contact tracing is really, really important. So when people come into our homes and into our environment, we already know that they haven't really been in contact with anybody with any symptoms. So the risks are low anyway. So the real risk is what they're carrying on their bodies, on their clothes and their hair, and what is then thrown up into the atmosphere. And if we breathe in these nanoparticles, which are dry viruses, they can then activate on the mucous membrane, because if they hydrate, they activate. So this is just an extra layer of security that we're putting in.
What does it look like? Does it look like a sort of air conditioning? I'm just trying to get a mental picture of what this machine looks like.
About a foot across, and you plug it in, and you put it in a strategic place. You put it quite high up, and it just takes the air and it circulates it, and it also produces the ozone. So with that, we're sort of just adding that little bit of extra peace of mind. It isn't instead of all the other measures. I think that's really important to point out.
So it's in addition to. Can I go back and ask you a question? You talk about doing the pre-consultation Zoom call with your patients. Does that make it an even more personal experience once they come and see you? Do you think? Do you get a different kind of connection doing it by Zoom first?
Yeah, I think we're able to develop a rapport and a connection with our patients when we do that. It is a very sort of it's a very intimate sort of consultation.
Yeah.
We are very much one-to-one. There is nobody else there. In the clinic we have ourselves, we have our assistants, you've got the chaperoning system, so lots of people are there. But in that sort of environment, I find that people can open up because they're at home and they feel.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And do they open up about, just out of interest, other things other than the potential cosmetic surgery they might want or anything else?
Absolutely. I mean, our approach and my particular approach is I'm from a medical background. And in medicine, we always look at all aspects. We take a full history. We talk about everything from their social history, their nutrition, their psychological history, because the way I look at it is that somebody comes to see me, be it for a medical problem or a cosmetic issue that they want to discuss, not because they suddenly woke up and it was there. There is a process through which they have come, by which they've arrived at a position where they want to get advice and maybe some treatments. And that process is a multifactorial process. And it could be, their health, their nutrition, other health issues, their genetics. All of these interact to influence how we're aging. And then when they come, that is actually a cognitive decision. So it's interacting with their psychology. It's affecting them psychologically. So this is why we have this sort of multifactorial approach and a combined approach to our treatments when we treat people.
Treatments of the nature that you do fascinate me because there's so much psychology behind it.
Absolutely.
So much. Do you often say no?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And these sort of Zoom consultations allow us to be able to, maybe discourage the people who shouldn't be coming in, where we can't see what they're talking about. And, we can then encourage them to seek other sort of help if they require psychological help, if they need to go back to their GPs. And sometimes I will see them because you get that feeling that there isn't anywhere else they can go. And
that's wonderful. But also, I think if they want something done so badly, and you're saying, I'm talking cosmetically, I guess, but and you say this is not for you, the fear for me would be they'd go somewhere else and get something terrible done. I mean, yes. And I know you have a psychology background, so I just think it's wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. But I think it is, and there is more and more training now within, all aspects of medicine and surgery, where doctors are being taught the psychological importance of consultations and how to assess people properly.
So, Dr. Khan, when you say, look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to go ahead with this procedure that you want, I'm fascinated on a really human level. How do they react? Do they calm? Do they kick off? What do they do?
It really depends on where they're coming from. I've had situations where the patients have been very grateful because we've been so honest. I think the most important thing is to listen to them first. And people are not interested in how much you know, what your knowledge level is. They're really interested in how much you care about them and that you're prepared to listen. And I think medicine is a caring profession, medicine, nursing, or the whole spectrum of what we provide. And if we take time to listen and we take time to sort of say to them what our perceptions are, so not just listening, but having enough respect to say, well, from what you've said, this is what I gathered. Just correct me if I'm wrong. This is what's bothering you. And then having that rapport will build trust and a doctor-patient relationship. It doesn't take long. It might sound as though you're there for hours. Develop that sort of relationship in a relatively short period of time.
But it's really important because someone who might want change might not be in a position mentally to accept the change that they think that they want. I mean, it's very difficult and very sensitive, isn't it?
It is.
So here's a question from Deborah Williams. Excuse me, if somebody has mental health issues but has the cognitive awareness, will you still do the surgery? Do you have a different process?
Good question.
I think if they have mental health issues and the mental health issues are impacting on their decision making, we would definitely involve a psychiatrist or a psychologist to help us pick our way through the path that we're going to take with them. If the mental health issues are not impacting on their decision making and their actual concerns are reasonable and and we can see what their concerns are and we feel that they would benefit from that, not just their psychological health, but there is a global benefit from that, then we would work with them, but we would involve their GPs and it would be a multidisciplinary approach. Because
people don't realise you have to have the safeguarding process there. It's very important.
Yeah. So, and some people really come in. I mean, I had a patient very young. She was in her 20s. She'd obviously been somewhere, and her lips were overfilled, and it was her birthday coming up, and she came in to ask for more filler. And of course, she came in and said, "Look, I've researched you. I know you're good. That's why I'm coming to you." And sometimes that sort of flattery will place a clinician in a very difficult situation, and you've got to be strong enough to be able to understand that they choose to come to you, but you choose to treat them, and it is a partnership. It's a joint decision, and she wanted more filler in her lips, and I sat down and explained to her, that I felt that already she had lots of filler. She was very young, and there would be a possible risk, even at the level where she is now with the filler, of damage to her lips. I didn't know who put the filler in, but it had been done. And I explained to her that it would be inappropriate to have more filler in because, she's got her birthday coming up. You tend to use the situation a little bit as well. But you've got your birthday coming up, it would be wholly inappropriate. There would be, we wouldn't do filler in your lips because there's already too much there. And then I showed her lips, and I wanted to get her perspective on her perception of what the right level of filler in lips would be. And I showed her lips, which were beautiful, perfectly balanced, and we talked about balance, and she didn't want any of those. She wanted the overdone lips. And I had to say to her, and she said, "Well, I'll give consent. I'm paying for this." I had to say to her, "I appreciate that, but we wouldn't be doing this, and we won't be doing this for you."
Wow. And she went away, presumably, and that was it.
She went away. I didn't feel that she was she was just very focused on her lips. And psychologically, there weren't other factors where, I felt that she was particularly at risk. But other than that, she didn't have the right perception of what lip fillers would have been.
I suppose there's only so much you can do and say, even with all the knowledge and psychology background, if somebody wants something,
yes,
they'll bugger off and get it somewhere else.
Patients on to look after them. We've had patients who've had quite severe anorexia, and they're coming in for liposuction and fat removal. So we talk to them, we get a full history, an understanding of where they are, and and they're in psychological disquiet and dis-ease, and what we have to do is work with them to take where their expectations are and try and change their expectations and change the way that they approach things. And there was one particular case, this was back in 2006, where she came in, the poor girl was desperate to have liposuction. She'd been to other clinics, and I knew she would be clinic jumping. So we said, "Look, what we're going to do is we're going to monitor you, okay? And if you get to that point where it is appropriate, then we'll talk about it." So what we did was we just monitored her, and we kept her under our gaze, and we were then able to develop that rapport, refer her to psychologists, and start helping her from that perspective.
I know you've addressed how you've changed things in the clinic because of COVID, but have you seen people's views on surgery and having work done different because of COVID? In fact, Sean Clifford, who's Russ's lovely other half, has asked the question, the same thing: has the use of Zoom, etc., made more people consider work? And I guess during COVID, has COVID done anything to somebody's psyche in terms of looking more useful? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We've all been through. If you just excuse me 1 sec, I need to look for a connector because I need to
charge something up. I bet.
I need to connect this computer up.
I'm gonna see if I can get a picture that I think would be. Is it? Oh, there we are.
I think with COVID, there has been a huge psychological impact, and people have experienced mental health challenges even when they don't have a mental health diagnosis, and there's been the isolation, the loneliness, the change, the uncertainty, not just in in our futures, in our jobs, our financial security, but how's the world going to be when we go back? So there's all of this around, and I mean, I certainly personally have been through psychological challenges in adjusting to this, because my wife and I have a clinic. We have a responsibility not just to our families, but we feel a real deep responsibility to the people who work with us, and we went through these sort of questions and challenges, and we had to sit down and talk about it. And we were lucky that we had each other, but there are people out there who don't have other people that they've been down with. So I'm very much aware that mental health has been affected on a population level, and those people who have pre-existing mental health issues have been even worse off. So because they've not been able to access the help and support that they had before.
And then what's the knock-on effect then in terms of your profession and people then wanting more surgery, wanting different surgery? What is its manifestation in terms of work being done?
The type of work. What we're seeing through is more facial work. People have been sat in front of Zoom. Now, when we're in conversation, normally we're either on the phone or we're talking to somebody. We're not looking at ourselves. Now with Zoom, people are seeing themselves. They're seeing their faces.
Myself all the time.
And we have had a boom in treating people with large buccal fat. So our buccal fat removal.
What do you call that phrase? Sorry, what do you call that? Buccal.
It's a fat pad here, which gives people a very baby rounded face. And a lot of these people have struggled with it for a long, long time, and not done anything about it because they haven't been looking at themselves that much. But through the Zoom culture, they've been sat there looking at themselves and thinking about it a lot more, and maybe focusing. And I don't like to say obsessing about it, because that puts it at a different category. But thinking about it, and they've moved towards that decision making point in their lives where they want to go and do something about it.
So it's a Zoom boom, as far as you're concerned.
Boom. Yeah.
So I'm confused. What does that look like? As an older lady, I want more fat put into my face, not the fat removed. But what does that look like?
It looks very round here, very, very big.
Okay. So it's very specific, is it?
Imbalance in the face.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So you're right. Fat in the mid face is good, and as we get older.
And now I'm looking at myself.
It all moves down, doesn't it? It moves down.
Everything heads south.
Yeah.
Your boobs move down to your butt. So all of that happens.
Not yet. Ross's has, but mine haven't.
Right, easy now. Easy. I've a question for you, Dr. Khan. Is this, and it links with everything that you do and psychology. When you're going through, when I'm going through newspapers or flicking through stuff, and I see people who've had very evidently work done, and the work is, let's not beat around the bush, terrible. I mean, they look ridiculous.
Yes.
What is the disconnect between the way they actually look, that the person on the Clapham omnibus would say, wow, that looks ridiculous, and what do they see when they look in the mirror?
Yeah. I think there is a loss of perspective, and this is where I think we as professionals have a responsibility to say to people, you're going a bit too far now. And we've got over 45,000 patients on our books, and they keep coming back. And a lot of patients say the reason why we keep coming back is because you will tell us when we've had enough. When if we're losing perspective, you will say, right, that's enough, no more. And and I think we have we have a responsibility to do that. We're not just there to provide treatment and we're a private clinic and just to take money. We're there to look after our patients, and as a result, our clinic has done really well. And I feel that there are. It could be tempting. As a doctor, I'm not a business person. Leslie does all that, and I think I'm really privileged to be able to practice medicine as medicine, and it's cosmetic medicine, but we see patients with other things as well. I'm a diagnostic doctor, I pick up other things, and we work with them, and we work back with the National Health Service as well. So
it's interesting. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, so it's important for me not to be thinking, here's a client coming in and it's revenue. It's important for me to treat them as patients.
But before you came on, Russ, we were talking about being celebrities, and I know that you have some celebrities. We don't have to know who they are, but that celebrities get airbrushed. I was saying that some poor celebrities don't get airbrushed and get picked on in the newspaper for stretch marks, this, that, and the other. Is that something that you talk about with your celebrity clients, that how they're dealing with the media?
Yeah, I think there are a different skew of the population as well, because I suppose how celebrities look is important for their work.
Of course.
And we've got to take that into consideration. So there are things that there are areas that we may work with a celebrity in order to balance their faces and to keep them looking the best that they can, where somebody who's not a celebrity and not in the public eye, we would say this is going a bit too far for you. So, with our experience and working with them, and I think if we can enhance natural beauty and address issues that they're concerned about, to enable them to function effectively, not just in their home life, but also in their professional lives, then we will work with them. But of course, we're not going to do anything extreme with them. And, we pride ourselves on our celebrities looking natural and people not knowing that they've had work done.
Best way to go.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Can we talk about, because you are so medically gifted, about all the COVID, one of the things that really scares me is that, and I try to read about it and I try not to read about it. If that doesn't sound too much, I try to get on with life as best as one can. Is that it's airborne, which comes back to your SaniSafe was the name of the machine?
Yeah, SaniSafe.
Right, SaniSafe. Okay, because I know I'm going to get a phone call the moment the show. We're getting one of those. I'm telling you, I can hear the phone going now. It'll be 1 minute past 2. Boom, we're getting one of those. Okay. Here's the thing. I get it. I've always had a thing, Dr. Kane. I won't touch surfaces. If I'm going to the public loo or in a restaurant or hotel, so I'm very, very careful with the door and the taps, and I've always been like that. And on public transport, I've always worn gloves and try to be careful. So that's okay. I can live with that. If it's airborne, and I can't see any definitive, answers to this, what are we supposed to actually do apart from wear a mask?
Yeah, I think wearing masks is, and what we've learned is, and there's a lot of research that's been done with masks now. The initial research was done looking at droplets traveling at a speed. So if somebody coughs or sneezes, there's an aerosol which is moving towards you. How far does it move before it drops? And the masks that have been put together show that the N95s are, they stop 95% of the aerosol from getting through, which is significant. The N99s, are 99%. But then when the droplets dry out, the smaller droplets dry out, you are left with a dehydrated virus, which is inactive. Okay? It will only activate if we hydrate it. But the inactive virus can, if it's like a dust particle, or if we just, if we're walking, and it just gets thrown into the atmosphere. And when it's in the atmosphere, it won't settle that quickly because it's very, very light. It's so small that it sort of bounces off other molecules within the atmosphere.
So if it's dry and in the atmosphere has moisture in it, does it then reactivate?
Yes. Well, it needs to be really hydrated, so you've got to have a fog or something. But if you breathe it in, then it'll reactivate on your mucous membranes. Okay. So wearing a mask is important. Okay. So this risk, and it isn't just small numbers of viruses. There is a viral load which will cause an infection. And so So if we're in a very dry atmosphere and it's up there, if it's nice and sunny and if there's ozone in the air, in the summer, those viruses are being killed within the environment outdoors.
Right.
In the winter, if we have a dry day and there's if there's a wind, those viruses are moving quite quickly away from you and there's a constant movement. But if it's a still day, and these are unusual circumstances, and there's virus in the air and you breathe it in, it's moving by what we call Brownian motion. In other words, the particles are suspended, and as they fall, they'll bounce off another particle and change direction.
Right.
So they're moving in a random way by bouncing off other molecules and other small particles. Of these, even the not so effective masks will probably, if they're multi-layered, trap 100% or close on to 100% of these small particles. So if this is a fear that people have, that these particles in the air, the dry particles, if I breathe them in, they'll cause a problem. If we're wearing a mask, then we're going to trap about 99.9% of them within the mask.
So we need to wear masks really all the time outside.
Outside there is movement, the risk is much lower. Indoors,
still there.
Yeah, it's there, but it's very low. Indoors, that risk is higher because there's less movement.
Can I ask you this, because this really it puzzles me, and it sounds like a silly question, but it's say you're going to a restaurant, which is a rare occurrence, but say you are. So you wear your mask, you've got off the tube or whatever, you're wearing your mask, you walk into the restaurant up to the reception, let's call it that, you're wearing your mask, your table for one or whatever it is, and then you sit down, and of course, obviously, you take your mask off. How safe, unsafe is this?
Right. The biggest fear with restaurants was not the fact that you take a mask off, because, hopefully when you go into a restaurant, there is a screening process. Have you been in contact with anybody? So the risk of people carrying it is low. Unfortunately, with it increasing within the younger population, that risk is becoming higher and higher, that we're going to come across somebody with COVID. But the risk is relatively low. The recommendations for the restaurants that are taking the proper precautions, is that they have air movement in the restaurant. So either a window is open or they've got air conditioning on, so there is a movement of air. Now that's going to become difficult in the winter because people are going to get cold in restaurants. The biggest fear was that people who are not in the same household will go out as a business meeting and sit opposite each other. We're not a meter or 2 meters away when we're opposite each other. We're much closer, and we're taking our masks off and we're talking. And if somebody coughs, there is that risk. But we've got to take that in context with the fact that, are they going to likely have it? The risk is really from aerosol. And if there's air movement, and this is where things like SaniSafe come in, because if restaurants take on board sanitizing the environment, the air that we're breathing, that risk is even lower.
Do we know of any restaurants that have got this? I know it's a very silly question, so how are the three of us meant to know that? But
I'll visit my clinic to look at it, and it's a restaurant in Marylebone, and they are taking on the technology. So and they came over to look at it because we had it, and the chap who sort of we got it through and saw them, and they've come in. So I think it'd be great for any public space, schools, classrooms. We've got to start thinking about how we can create a safe environment in a cost-effective way. So we've got more peace of mind because we've got grandchildren, they're going to school. I'm going to talk to that school about this equipment. We've got it in our clinic, we've got our protocols. I'm happy to share our protocols with people, because the more people that employ these protocols, the safer the environment's going to be.
Yeah, Chrissy Holt has asked, is it better to sit outside?
When compared with sitting inside, yes, because of the air movement.
And that's as simple as that.
Well,
my father said, sorry, Russ, can I?
Go. Yeah, go.
I forget what I'm going to say otherwise. That's an age thing as well. My dad, who's 89, genius man, still works, reads everything. He said something to me the other day, and I don't know if it's true. He said he read something that said that this virus is so difficult to treat because it changes once it gets inside the body and reacts differently. Is he talking complete rubbish? Depending on, I don't know what you meant.
Yeah, I think it. Well,
Please tell me he's talking complete rubbish, because he never talks complete rubbish.
No, he's too smart. That's the problem.
I think that the concept is actually right.
Okay.
So any infection and any virus will interact with an individual. And how we interact with our environment is down to our genomics, so how our genes are set up. So if somebody has an overactive immune system, it may get rid of the virus immediately, or if the virus takes hold, that immune system may start to overreact, and we might get a cytokine storm. So everybody interacts with the virus individually based on how their genes are set up.
And that's the same with any virus, the flu virus, Ebola virus, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. And, the fact that we've got an established vaccine for the flu virus helps protect us. If we didn't, we would have a pandemic with the flu. It would be in the same situation. To develop that sort of protection, we do need to develop a vaccine. And until we've got that, we can only control this through our behaviours.
This is a good question. Is it important where you put your face coverings on removal? I see many put on tables in restaurants.
Yes, it is. It is. Don't put it on, because don't forget your face covering is. I've got a face covering here. I know this isn't going out live, but putting on face coverings. Okay. What we have is that they're usually around the ears, hooked around the ears. And what I recommend is that if you're going to take it off, don't touch the face covering. Take it out from behind the ears, put it in the handbag, or even throw it away and have another. Put a clean one on.
I keep mine in a plastic, a little plastic bag. So when I take it off, using the elastic around my ears, which are now sore. That's ridiculous.
You do get sore.
Yours are sore, and I keep losing earrings. It's not good for women with earrings.
The earrings I've lost. And I put it in a plastic bag and put it away. So that I was instructed under penalty of death that I had to do that. So that was something else.
Go on.
I was going to say this. This is there any? And no, I had the flu jab. I always have the flu jab. I'm like the first in the queue. My other half books it up months in advance, like you're going to see Hamilton or something, and then we go and have it done. What's the latest thinking? Is there any? And I think let me retract that and ask you this, Dr. Kane, because the most important thing in life is hope. If you have hope, you have a focus. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Any other phrase you like. This seems to be unending for obvious reasons. You can't be critical of it. It's a whole new ball of wax. We don't know what's going on. What's the latest thinking on this? Because this clearly can't go on forever. There will be nothing left.
No, and it won't go on forever. There are a number of things that are happening and will happen. So one aspect is science and medicine and technology, which will help us, number one, to understand it better. And secondly, to help the people who have it, so our treatments are getting better. Whereas people going straight onto ventilators early on, we found out that actually worsened things. We give them oxygen now, and we don't put them on ventilators unless we absolutely have to. So our understanding is improving. So it's knowledge and intelligence that will fight it. We're developing vaccines. There's a rush now. There are two ways of developing vaccines. One is through new technologies, and that will hopefully speed up the process of vaccine development. But there is a downside to that as well. When we come up against a problem, we're not just looking at the problem itself and how the vaccine's interacting with it. We have to go back to methodology as well. So it's like we came to a grinding halt with the Oxford study because there was an issue with it. And it took longer to get back on track with it. But there are the established methods that are being used as well. And I know that Chinese have been working on it for a while through established routes, which may take a bit longer, but when they come up against a problem, they don't have to go back to methodology. The methodology has been already established and proven. So there are lots of people working from different angles to that. And then what we've got to also consider is evolution, because evolution comes into it as well, nature comes into it. A virus will evolve, and humans will adapt, and animals will adapt. Viruses evolve quicker. Now, the whole evolutionary pathway of a virus is to go and arrive at a place where it can live with its host. If a virus kills its host, it's not a good virus, and it will evolve from that point, because if the virus infected everybody, like Ebola was a terrible virus, that wasn't a good COVID virus, coronavirus. It was terrible because, number one, it didn't infect very many people. And number two, the people it did infect, it had a high pathogenicity. In other words, it was more likely to kill them. So it would wipe itself out very quickly. So that's not a good virus. So it evolved. And over the years, it's been evolving because this has come from the Ebola. So it's evolved and evolved and evolved to a point where its infectivity has gone up and its pathogenicity has come down. It's still quite pathogenic and it's killing people, but not as much as Ebola. And the next evolution will be even more infectious and less pathogenic until it reaches a point where it might even impart a benefit to us. And that's a perfect virus, which will infect everybody, and that guarantees its survival, and it will impart a benefit to the host. But it's going to take...
What benefit can a virus impart?
Well, it can interact. I mean, we've evolved through the years by taking on various attributes of viruses and bacteria. Our mitochondria are bacterial derived, and our evolutionary pathway has involved incorporating DNA and RNA information from microorganisms. So it's over time, but that's a long period of time. But in the short term,
that's so we have a stronger immune system.
Yeah, immune system, our ability to survive within environments. There are genetic changes that occur because some viruses incorporate themselves into our genomic material, into our DNA. And we've all, I mean, you may have heard of the CRISPR program, which is gene editing, and we use viral DNA, RNA to do that, where we insert genetic information into human genome to enable us to either control diseases or take out bits of disease, or even fight other viruses. So that's all going on already. So with this sort of virus, it's going to evolve into a less pathogenic, more infective virus, I think. And if we bring on a program of immunization, then like the flu virus, we're going to be able to have a predictive path forward. We're going to be able to develop immunity within communities.
Where are we? Because I get so confused, and that's why it's so valuable to have somebody with your background and your training and your knowledge as part of the show. What do you say to people who say, I'm not wearing a mask, it's against my human rights?
I've had a number of episodes where I was in John Lewis once, where a couple of young girls came down. I took Leslie out just for a walk, and we were going to get some food for lunch. And they were advising us to put masks on as we walked in, which everybody was doing, and these girls put their masks on. And then as soon as they got downstairs into the food hall, they took their masks off and they went over their shoulders. And there were lots of elderly people around. There were high-risk people around with masks coming out, within their rights to be able to come out, their own human rights to be able to come out and shop and be in the community. And they were very uncomfortable. People were sort of pointing and talking. So I went up to them. I said, "Could you please put your masks on?" And I got that look. So,
yeah, know that look.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely saw red. And I said to the girl, I said, look, you know, I'm sorry, please put your masks on. It is the law that you, and she said, it's not the law. I said, it is the law. And I really got angry. I had my mask on and I went right up. And I said, I'm a doctor and I've seen my colleagues die looking after patients with this condition, and people are dying, and you're putting everybody else at risk. And I raised my voice. I don't normally do that. And I said, put your mask on. She put it on.
Did you not just swear?
Good for you.
Oh, good for you. Well done.
Good for you.
Well done.
No, and she put it on. And she said, happy now? I said, thank you. And you know, we walked out of there and somebody stopped us and said, thank you for doing that.
Oh.
But there aren't enough people around. And even the security, I said to the security, could you please, you know, do something? He said, we can't do anything because we'll get a mouthful of abuse. And had this been in the underground somewhere, I might have had a punch in the face, or even worse. So people are scared of speaking out and saying things.
A good question Ed Grossman's asked. He says, so doctor, should we all learn to live with it and not fight it? Bloody good question.
I think both. I think let the powers to be develop the science and you know, work for us. Let them get on with their jobs and let them get on with it without us necessarily, you know, ranting and raving and shouting at them and demanding, because there will come a time when we get to that vaccine, and that will be helpful. And what we have to, you know, live with it in an intelligent way, like you're doing. You know, you're thinking about it, but you're not just thinking about the virus. What I feel is that I wear a mask outside. Those masks that people wear aren't going to protect them necessarily if somebody sneezes and lets the virus out, because there are openings and it can get it. So it protects them to a degree. However, what they're doing is protecting other people. And in wearing a mask, we're showing respect for other people. And we're saying, you know, I appreciate that there is a virus here. I want to protect you. And if you're wearing a mask, you're protecting me. So if somebody else sneezes with a mask on, the amount that gets out is much less, and most of it.
Not enough people realise that wearing the mask is not protecting me; it's protecting somebody else. The other thing I want to ask you, and you might not want to get into it, but pharmaceutically, the vaccine. I don't want a vaccine that's been rushed through. I'd rather have a vaccine that's absolutely right. And I worry
I'm scared too. I'm very concerned about that.
Yeah, I've said over and over, if a vaccine came out tomorrow, there's not a cat's chance in hell I'd put it in my body.
No, and there are more and more people thinking this, I think. And again, what we have to do is make a decision for ourselves, but we can only make that decision when we have information. And we need to be looking at the safety information of the vaccine, what has been done, how safe it is, what are the risks. And you know, if that is presented honestly, then we can make an informed decision as to whether we're going to have the vaccine or not.
And I'm really sorry to keep asking you questions, but I've got people around, not around me here, but that I've been speaking to for days. I have a couple of friends who are incredibly fit, healthy men in their 60s, and they have become incredibly ill with COVID. So it is, you know, a misconception that the fit and the healthy are going to either fight it or not get it, and it's not really explained enough, because of course I'm really worried about my dad, who's nearly 90, and the vulnerable and people who've got underlying illnesses. But you know, two incredibly fit, healthy guys have caught it. They don't even know where they caught it from.
No, and I think this is because we haven't got that protection. You know, we haven't got herd immunity, and we will only get that if the vaccine comes out. You know, we can't induce herd immunity. Are we going to kill lots of people just for the sake of the herd immunity? And what your father was saying is absolutely true in what you're saying now, Alexandra, because it's unpredictable. You may get it, and you may not have any symptoms at all. We know, you know, at least 8% of the population, maybe more, will get the virus, they'll show no symptoms at all, they'll be out there working and getting on with work. This is why the actual testing for it is important in the workplace, because 8 to 10 to 12% of your workforce may have it, and they will spread it if they've got it. Whether they've got symptoms or not doesn't stop them from spreading it. The risk is high. And if they spread it to somebody who's going to get symptoms and somebody who may die from it, then everybody's at risk. So I think the testing is, at the moment, the most powerful tool we have, other than wearing masks, hand washing, hygiene, social distancing, and if you've been exposed to isolate yourself, is the testing.
Should testing be mandatory?
I think it should at the workplace. We've brought it in. We do it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And I think it should be mandatory. And I think we should. And if the government's going to invest in things, yes, invest in PPE for the National Health Service and for the providers of care who are at the front line, but also invest in the testing. And that should be mandatory, I think.
Questions coming in thick and fast. Of course, this from Spain, from Chrissy Holt. I read on Google, high doses of vitamin D would help frail people. Is it true?
If somebody's vitamin D deficient, their immune system can be compromised. So if you're taking supplementation of vitamin D, you're supporting your immune system. It's not going to afford you any degree of protection. Don't depend on it, don't rely on it, because you might put yourself into a false sense of security and go out and have a higher risk of getting it. So, stick with the advice that's out there. That's
your Siobhan's got a lovely question, because I'm so confused about the tier system. Will tier 3 help reduce the virus transmission? Will London go into tier 3?
Impact on your business?
Yeah. Of course, I think it'll impact on every business.
Thanks, Russ.
And I think the reasoning behind tier 3 is, and I think we will probably go into tier 3 mid-December, around Christmas time. It's a time where a lot of businesses are quiet anyway, and we have a Christmas break, we have a few days off. But I think from a business perspective, yes, it will affect the business. I think from a protection perspective, I think it will reduce the risk of spread of the virus. And don't forget that what we're seeing today started 2 to 3 weeks ago. So, and what we see as a result of what we do today won't have an impact until 2 to 3 weeks down the road. So the tier 3, it's not a lockdown. I think it's an alert level. If we're going to alert across the country, I think it will help to reduce the number of infections and control the spread.
So I have a friend who's in tier 1. She works in tier 2, and you can go into work at tier 2. And she goes back home to tier 1. She doesn't get it, and actually neither do I. And of course, her business is definitely not doing any testing.
I think it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because if you're in a tier 3, you really shouldn't be going into tier 2. However, a tier 3, you're more protected because of the higher levels of restriction. So working in a tier 3, you're working in a safer environment than you would be in a tier 2, because you're not going to pubs, you're not going to, and if you haven't got it, you're actually more protected.
Okay.
So, I think we've really got to get our minds around this. And, unless you're in a high risk occupation, like in a hospital in tier 3, then I think you're actually less likely to get it. That's why the tiering system has been put in place.
Yeah. I think you have to be very sensible. You just got to be sensible with your family, sensible with yourself, and know what you can do within reason within your own family. I think.
I think we went into tier 1, and we stuck. If we were to stick to the rules very strictly, I think it would come down anyway. I think into tier 3 because we have to impose a degree of restraint, and that's why the tier 3 system is being imposed. But I believe that if everybody complied with tier 1, and we were sensible about it, and we didn't go out and mix. The provisions in tier 1, if we stuck to the rules, would control the virus.
Wow.
But we're not like that. People are not like that. We want our human rights, and we want to.
This is all, yeah. Thank you so much, Piers Corbyn, genius. Here's a very difficult question. Is one I would just like. I'm certainly not looking for a definitive answer. That would be impossible. How do we balance life against having any form of economy once this starts to, should it ever go away? Because it feels like a kind of nuclear war. People come out of their shelter and everything's gone. And I'm just so concerned, as everybody is, that the pandemic will eventually be controlled, and you're going to come back to nothing.
I think the important thing to I think consider is that life will never be as it was before. And indeed, if we went back to how we were before, there would be another high risk of a pandemic at some stage.
Jeez. Okay.
So what we have to do is we have to learn from this experience. And and I'm not saying that we're going to be in this sort of lockdown, but I think our hygiene constructs are going to change. The way that we look after food, that we handle food, all of that is going to change. This is where it came from originally. And our attitudes towards infection control, towards personal hygiene, hand washing, all of that will change. And I think we will see, and I don't think this year we're going to see as much flu, simply because people aren't traveling as much.
Yeah.
Most flu came from, Southeast Asia anyway, because we had the Japanese flu, and it was because people were traveling out. They were bringing them back, through the port, and once they got in, had we not had vaccinations ready for them, we would have had pandemics. But I think by changing the way that we clean ourselves and we look after ourselves, I think the actual flu season is going to be easier as well. People are not going to get as much flu.
Isn't there an irony, eh? That you swap one and swap the other.
Makes sense.
Dr. Khan, I really can't thank you enough. You are, as I said, one of our absolute top favorite guests that we have. You always talk with such wonderful clarity and such calmness. And speaking personally, I find you incredibly reassuring.
Me too. For me, it's lovely to meet you for the first time.
Listen, thank you so much. Thank you for all you do. I hope that we may ask you again to come back, because I know that the audience absolutely loves listening to you, and you answer their questions with such great, as I said, clarity. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much. And if I can say, if it doesn't sound too weird, have a nice weekend. I don't know if that means anything anymore.
Yes, it
no
does.
idea. I don't know.
Nice weekend.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. What a guy.
What a lovely man.
What a guy, eh?
It does give you a sense of hope.
Yeah, what a terrific guy. And it's a bumper show today. It really is, because I can see our next guest is in the digital green room, enjoying the catering. I went for the Lafitte 68. It seems to be going down very, very well. Had the salmon flown in, obviously, from Scotland. But there's people who probably believe that. Ed, so clear and coherent. And also here, Chrissy Holt, wonderful person, very, very informative. And this quickly from Chrissy, just before we go to Dr. And we're going to disappear. We'll do the Phil Dave thing. Oh, I can't see. We're in total. Remember, Chrissy lives in the middle of the middle of nowhere, literally on a farm. Like, I've seen pictures. There's not another building you can even see. We're in total lockdown. No mixing with different families. No going into different provinces or leaving the municipality. Most have worn masks from March until now. Yet cases are going up rapidly.
Scary.
From July, young ones, not starring Cliff Richard, have gathered in huge parties and no masks. Dicks. Benidorm, which relies on Brit tourists, is now 50% closed down. You betcha. And those businesses, some of those businesses, will not be coming back. Now, I have got to do something because I am freezing. So I've got to do this before I speak to Dr. Anna Hood.
It's his age, you know, everyone.
Do you know, I used to like you. And I've, for 35 years,
Skin spinning.
for 35 years, I've been debating whether I like you or not. This is my new top, by the way. It's a 1930s kind of vibe, which I really love. It's artwork from the 30s. Right, let's go to our next guest. Another mighty brain box coming up. We've got to be on our mettle. Mighty brain box. Ladies and gentlemen, Anna Hood.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Anna. How are you doing? How are you doing?
Doing well. How is everyone doing?
Well, you know, it's the thing. It's the thing. I don't know.
Cold.
It's the thing, right? Thank you so much. You were so great last time, and thank you so much for joining us again. It's a bit of a kind of COVID thing today, but frankly, it's pretty damn important. And to get Amir Khan and yourself on both on the same show is a bit of a coup for Men's Radio, and also I think again shows some light so we can have a proper discussion as opposed to just the hysteria that the media whips up. Since we last spoke, how's all the research and everything going with you? I mean, and for those who missed it, tell us a little bit about what you actually do, as I know, but why would I expect other people to?
Will do. Thank you again for having me. I'm such a pleasure to be back on.
Always our pleasure. Thank you.
So you know, we're a research team. We're leading a study called Attach, so attitudes about COVID-19 and health at UCL London, and we have partnered with Air My Opinion, which is a smartphone app, to be able to collect daily polls. Twice a day, we're collecting information from our participants just about how they're doing in terms of in related to COVID. Are they able to social distance when they need to? Are they able to follow the mitigation strategies? And then we're also collecting monthly information primarily around mental health, resilience. Are they able, their anxiety, their depression? Since we last spoke, the study's gone really well. We've been able to partner to recruit with a lot of different charities. So we're recruiting through Crohn's and Colitis, Joint Dementia Research, Parkinson's UK, the Sickle Cell Society. So we're just really partnering with a lot of charities to be able to get a lot of individuals with medical conditions, because that was one of our focuses, and then older adults, which we're doing really well. So we have nearly 1,500 people in the study. Obviously, we're trying to get more, so we can really to be able to share those findings. I think, you know, in the media as well as, you know, through our academic channels, but we really want this to be able to go out to everybody. So about 20% of our population indicate that they have a pre-existing mental health condition. Around 30% have
20%. Let's not walk past that. Wow.
No.
You know, that's a shocker. I mean, I'm not surprised, but it's a shocker. You know,
I mean, it is interesting because, you know, we have a lot of individuals with medical conditions, and we know that those are comorbid, which means that they go together, because it's just it's a tough time. And so, I mean, the majority would be anxiety and depression, but we do have individuals with more severe.
What's the do you have a spectrum for the mental health 20%? What you know, you said the majority is anxiety, but do you get a clear indication of the spectrum?
Yeah, so I think across this, so these are individuals who within the study come to us and tell us that they already have a mental health condition. And so that's been anxiety, depression, PTSD, sort of across the board. What's really interesting, I think, is that our overall sample has a generally, if I was, as I'm a clinical psychologist, if I was diagnosing them, our overall sample has a mild level of anxiety, that was more surprising to me, because you expect some individuals to come with their own mental health conditions, but if you have a large enough sample, you generally expect them to be in the normal range, with some individuals high, some low. But right now, our entire sample is indicating that they're experiencing at least mild levels of anxiety. And
that doesn't surprise me at all.
Can I ask you a personal question? Anna, can I ask you a personal question? Because there you are, you're doing all this work and you're in the forefront of this, which is fantastic. How have you actually been through this? Because I'll be perfectly honest, there are days when I really freaking struggle. Most of the time, what the hell, I just get on, but there are days and you think, man, I'm just having a bad day. And then I acknowledge I'm having a bad day and move on. But how have you actually been?
I think I've been like many people. I've had the same way where I've just had some days where that's it. I know that's not going to be the day that I'm going to be able to do anything. And I take that time. And I think that's what I would suggest to your listeners is that, listen to your own cues as well. It doesn't always have to be go, go, go. If there's a day when you're experiencing some more challenges, take a moment, do something that is fun, whatever that might be in these times, right? So, but even if it's watching an episode of TV that you like to do or walking your dog. So, I mean, that's been one thing for me. So I have a dog. So that's, has always helped out in terms of mood because they don't know what's going on. So yeah, my mood has fluctuated more than it normally does as well, is what I would share.
So, as a clinical psychologist though, what we tend to kind of beat ourselves up, don't we? Because you've really touched on something. I didn't even know we were going to go there. It just occurred to me. I've got a lot to do. We're running radio stations and all sorts of other stuff that we're doing. And there are days when I think, I haven't got the energy today. And then I feel very, very guilty and I get cross with myself. I'm being perfectly honest about it. It's hard not to do that, isn't it? If you want to achieve a lot, and I'm not saying you're ambitious, but you're focused, it's hard not to beat yourself up when you're having one of those days when the energy is just not there.
Yeah, and it's that sort of self-talk, and it's really thinking about restructuring. We consider it in psychology sort of cognitive restructuring, but it's taking those thoughts that you're having, thoughts of your thoughts, if you have to think about it, right? They thoughts telling you negative things about yourself. Which is really difficult. You're not often getting this externally. You're telling yourself that you're not doing things that you need to be able to do. And sometimes it really is just telling yourself, no, I'm going to not listen to that negative voice today. I'm going to be able to, I know taking some time for myself is actually the most productive thing. Because that's, I think, the
question for you both. Were you like this before COVID? Because I've never suffered from anxiety, but I know that I have changed in the last 8 months. I don't get embarrassed just every now and then and thinking, shit,
I think one of the things that we're trying to measure in the study, and Dr. Jennifer Murphy is going to be leading this, she's at Royal Holloway, is looking at intolerance of uncertainty. And I think that's one of the challenges that we're really having.
Can you have that phrase again?
Intolerance of uncertainty. And so I said she's, we're a research group and we're all leading in our own respective areas, and that's really her area, because that's one of the things I really think is key, is we're really having these challenges because it's constant uncertainty. You don't know day to day, am I allowed to see my family? Can I go to the shops? Can I go on the tube? Like, it's just always this uncertainty about what's happening next. And we're just
go on.
And so that's just that can just be challenging. I think that then that is related to the anxiety, just not being able to have that steady ground to sit on and be able to know what's coming next.
And then, am I going to get it?
Right. Yes. Is my family going to get it?
Yeah. It's perfect. It's interesting that the anxiety thing, because Mike Russ knows my daughter has mild anxiety, but she's never experienced me having anxiety. She's 25, and when I did have a bad 2 weeks, and I think that's it. It was so awful for her. She didn't know what to do. She didn't know, and she and I lived together, and I felt even worse because my anxiety made her feel even more anxious. It was horrific. We got through it, of course, but it was like, oh my God, don't want to feel like this again. I haven't felt like it since, I have to be honest.
And that's, I think, that we're going to see that in waves for individuals. We'll see that, I know from my work, even with individuals who live with anxiety all of the time, not without COVID. It's not, you know, it ebbs and flows, as you've probably seen with your daughter, right? It's not always all consuming, but sometimes it's just too much, and you just have to take the time. And I think in a milder sense, we're going to see that with a lot of us, where we're just sort of having that. So those ebbs and flows, where days are sometimes okay, and other days are just really, really tough.
But on the positive side of it, and you won't know, but I'm a Samaritan. I work as a chaplain for the Hertfordshire Constabulary, and I work in mental health as well. And what I feel is positive is that you have a world of people out there who've never suffered from anxiety, who have not understood anxiety as the not the horrible side of mental health, who all of a sudden are thrown into this situation. And I am hoping from the bottom of my heart that the bigger picture is that more people will understand mental health after this.
I hope so too.
You know, I really hope that happens.
No,
Yeah,
Anna, you touched on something very interesting. Well, everything you've said is very interesting, but you touched on something about dementia that you're, some of the charities that you're hooking up with. This is an area, because everyone's in such a state, really, let's be honest about it. People with dementia, is it your understanding they're more likely to contract COVID, or is that a complete myth?
I haven't heard research that's strong enough to say that they're more likely, because they just have so many of the other risk factors, right? So in terms of age, likely having some of those other medical conditions. I don't think we're there yet in terms of a research to be able to know whether dementia itself is a risk factor. In terms of joint dementia research, so there, that's anybody can join to be a volunteer, just so you know, to be involved in studies, not only ours. And then we have individuals with dementia, but actually we have a lot of individuals who are carers, be it for individual dementia or other medical conditions, who also want to be involved in research as well. But yes, one of the reasons for Attach to focus on older adults, right, is because we're really thinking those medical and mental health conditions are going to be exacerbated by COVID, because there's just this, we're also looking at loneliness, right? And so we know from some of the research that I've done that some people are feeling closer to their families, right? They're in the house, they're seeing people all the time. And so there has been some fostering of closeness. But one thing we don't know is how, if that similarity is happening in older adults. And from our research, we're hoping to be able to answer that question, because my hypothesis is no, because they're much more separated from their families. They're not able to have those connections. They're not surrounded by families. Oftentimes they're alone in their homes.
Yeah. Question here, if you'd like to read it out, Alex.
Sean is asking, will your findings help the government increase the level and type of therapy required?
I hope so. That would be one of the goals. I will say one of our next goals is to be able to do, so we're collecting the information digitally. Now we're working on trying to have a digital mental health intervention. So not in replacement of, coming to see somebody like me face to face, but Alexandra, as you probably know from the calls you're getting at Samaritans, it's really hard to get a referral right now. For patients. Right?
I have to be honest, even before, I've been doing this for a few years now, you always get people on the phone saying, I've been waiting 8 months. So it's the same now. It's no different, funnily enough. I think it's always been very difficult. I don't know why.
I think there's just the limited amount of people to be able to see the amount of people that need help. So with the goal we're trying to do now is for the cohorts of people who answer our questions is then at some point to be able to offer a digital mental health intervention that we're working with. We're starting to collaborate with another research group. And so definitely, yes, I think it would be that our goal would be not only, I think, to be able to direct mental health interventions and help understand what interventions are needed at this point and in the future, in the next year or so. But I also think, hopefully thinking about some of the messages that we're getting from our participants in our daily polls. So people are telling us, that that they're not able to do some of the things. We're asking people, are you able to limit your social contact? And 55% of people last week told us they weren't able to, and they were trying. And then individuals who are trying to be, are they concerned about PPE, the availability of PPE for our essential workers? And we're seeing that individuals are very concerned about that as well. So not only our mental health findings, but it's some of the daily poll findings we're hoping that can inform, what happens next. I think we really need to use behavioral science to be able to figure this out. This is what we need, right? The strategies are all behavioral. And there's individuals who, as we talked about last time, don't want to follow the strategies, but there's individuals who want to and are confused about the tier system, or they're confused about what they might need to be able to do, and or they just, it's just, so that we can do better and sort of get out the other side of this.
So you've got a lot of elderly and dementia in your database, in your focus group, yes? Is that right?
We don't have a lot of the individuals with dementia. I would say the medical conditions we have the most common are diabetes, asthma. We have a lot of individuals with COPD. We have a lot of individuals with Parkinson's, though, because we did parts with the Parkinson's UK, and then a cohort with dementia. But our overall sample is closer to the older adults. So our overall sample average age is in their late 50s. And so we have some people in their 90s completing the study.
Have you got a lot of care home people or not necessarily?
That's not a question we currently are asking, but that's a really good point that because one of the ideas of the study is so that it's, as anonymous as possible. So we don't know individuals' addresses, we don't know their names. We want them to be able to give their information freely. But that is a really interesting point. We can see, the region they're living in. But understanding that household makeup, we do know how many people are within the home with them, but I think that's a really good point that we might.
The only reason I asked is I saw a piece on BBC a couple of weeks ago where I have to say I had never cried so much, and I like crying, in my life about the problem with care homes and COVID. And I understand that you can't go in, but I think the elderly with not being able to see their families, with whatever illness they might have, will pass away. It is just, I mean, it was horrific. A man who's been married to someone for 68 years can't go and see his wife. And it was horrible. And he said on air, she will die of nothing but loneliness. It's just horrific.
It's completely heartbreaking. I thank whatever that my mother passed before she had to go through this.
Oh, me too.
I mean, now here's a very interesting question, and this is from Essex Adventure. I caught a cold recently. Does this indicate my hands, face, space regime didn't work? Good one.
Oh, so I mean, I'm a clinical psychologist, but I can answer in terms of my thoughts. No, I wouldn't. I would suggest not. I mean, if you it's still, a lot of us, a lot of the individuals who've, maintained social distance, washed their hands, have still gotten COVID. And we know that from cold season that you you have somebody with a cold and you still end up getting a cold. We're doing all of the strategies to limit it to the best we can, but it is still a contagious virus. And so, for example, we do know it remains on fomites, right? It remains on surfaces. So perhaps you did everything, but you touched a surface that somebody else hadn't washed their hands. So, so it's it's one of those things that I'd suggest doing. Continue, as many of us who can continue to do all of the strategies. That's the way we get sort of at the other side of this. But yes, there will be individuals who'll get a cold or get COVID, even though they've done many of the things that we've asked them to.
Scary though. You try not to let it to let it wash you and kind of wash you away like a tidal wave, but it's of course it's absolutely concerning. I'd like to ask you, because I asked the same question to Dr. Kane, who I have huge respect for, as I do for you, because I've really enjoyed when you've come onto the show. What do you say to the people who say, I'm not wearing a mask, it's against my human rights, how dare you make me? do you say to these people?
I have it's a really interesting point, right? Because we have many things in our lives that we do both for ourselves and for others that aren't as contentious, and yet somehow masks have become that contentious. So you will wear your seatbelt in your car. That's something you've been told to do by the government. We didn't do in the 60s and 70s, but then we now do. And you do it, I assume, because it makes it safer for you in the car. And yet, so that's where I would see with the mask. And then the other thing I always think of is it really is this, altruistic. It's for others as well. I read a sort of a humorous piece this morning, sort of that touches on this. And so they called themselves the Freedom Cafe, and it was a joking piece that we in the cafe, our dishwashers don't wash they don't wash their hands, but don't worry because it's their choice. And then individuals who serve you aren't going to wash their hands, and we don't clean up the plates in between, but don't worry because it's their individual choice. Those things are things that we expect from all of the things around us. And so this is the same. This is the same. I think the same way it's helping other individuals and helping ourselves to be able to wear the masks. And so when individuals say things like that, that's the humor is what I try to use in terms of thinking about it. But it really is, there are so many things that you do on a daily basis that are for others. And so this is just one of those things. And if enough of us do those things, then, then many, many people don't get sick and die.
Actually,
hold on.
What I find depressing about this, what I find really depressing about this is that for a brief little scintilla of time, we all stood on our doorsteps and banged saucepans and hooray for the NHS, right? And for a moment, the country was united. Here's a common foe. It's an invisible virus, right? We all hate it. We love the NHS, right? And then within, 5.5 minutes later, you got 10,000 people in Trafalgar Square. Whoa, I'm not wearing a mask. No, this is all nonsense. No, there's no such thing as COVID. I mean, why do people just over everything have to be so divided? It's quite extraordinary.
My question was why this country? Why is it us? Because I have friends in America, and there's a load of rubbish going on in America at the moment, but basically they have been wearing masks from March. I have friends in Cyprus. They've been wearing masks from March. I went to Italy in September. Everybody was wearing masks. Were wearing masks all the time. It's an embarrassment that we don't do this. I don't understand.
I would say I'd push back a little. I lived in the US for quite a long time. So I actually only moved back to the UK late last year. So I lived all over the US, and I still have many friends, and I think they're having very many of the similar issues to us in terms of masks, sadly. I think it's a challenge that somehow masks have become on the dividing line. Like if you could have scripted this, and I know many people think 2020 has been scripted. There's sort of writers in the background writing these, what's happening. But you would never have thought, if you'd have said, next year there's going to be, a contagious disease and you'll have to wear a mask. Nobody would have said, no, okay, never. That's, but now it somehow has. And I think that's the challenge is to turn that back around. And to Russ, to your point, I think one of the challenges in human behavior is really being able to think in the long term. We really have challenges being able to do things now to see something in fruition, right? And then we know that from anything in finance and in mental health, it's really challenging for humans just to be able to do that. And I think we're seeing some of this with mask wearing and social distancing, because we know if a majority of people had done everything, all of the strategies that we know work, for a shorter amount of time, we wouldn't be doing it for this extended amount of time.
You see, I agree. And here's a point from Ed Grossman. Russ, the anti-maskers, it's political. I think it's completely political. I don't think it has anything to do with human rights. It is, I'm going to show you and all this
It's the most
I don't think it's got
ridiculous
anything.
mentality. Yeah.
And it's what makes me into a fury, as you've just said, Anna, it's just prolonged this. This could have been knocked out or at least subsided, but no, these idiots have just prolonged this nonsense. It's unfair on everybody else.
Doesn't
65
make
million
sense.
people here trying to
I
do
went
that.
for a walk with my daughter on Sunday. The beautiful weather. I went to Hampstead Heath, and there's a couple of cafes near Kenwood. The queue outside was 100 people or more. No masks, no social distancing. I didn't queue. I just walked with her, and I refused to go. But that's the most. I mean, we're not stupid people. I just don't understand it. Really don't.
It's become this mix of, some individuals feeling it's their rights. Definitely, I agree with Ed that there's some, in some cases, it's been politicized. Masks has been politicized, and I think that's the thing. All of these measures to pull back, it needs to be able to be pulled back and understand these are public health measures. I mean, if we think about all of the public health measures as humans, we've done amazing things in public health, right? We remove smallpox no longer exists. That's a thing that we used to people were very concerned about, and we removed that. And I think we can, these are things that we can do as well, but it has to be collective. It really and not individualistic. We have to think collectively of how, just as we have to very much think about, to me, it's sort of like putting on like a superhero, putting on the mask. Like, I'm doing this so somebody in a care home can get to see their loved one. I'm doing this I'm doing this so my family member who has a medical condition can go outside tomorrow. That's why I'm wearing it.
It's not such a big deal, is it? It's not like we're having to put Iron Man's helmet on, is it?
Exactly.
Plus, here's an interesting question that perhaps your research has shown some light in. The railways are seeing an increase in young suicide. Awful. Is this being seen elsewhere in society? Now, Essex Adventure, should be a proper name. Do you mean the people working in the railways, or do you mean people are, I'm going to be vulgar and horrible, just using the railways as a means to kill themselves? I think you know what I mean.
That's not something that we've seen in our research. That isn't something that we've collected. It will be interesting to see, though, sort of our figures of suicide and suicidality over these last March to the end of the year, and whether we've seen those a general uptick. And that'd be something that, I don't know that it would be younger individuals. I mean, if I was, thinking about it, it would probably, that I would think that it might have gone up, but it would probably have gone up across the board. I don't know that younger individuals would be particularly affected, but I hadn't heard that about railways.
This is great. You did say that, and I'd forgotten. Toby. You're marvelous. Thank you. It just feels so weird. I go Essex Adventure. Anyway, Toby, thank you for that. I appreciate that. It's a really interesting point. You said you're putting your mask on. I absolutely love that, like a superhero. And Dr. Khan said the same thing. You're not just doing it for you. You're doing it for everybody else, which is why that Michael Swindle's point: are the British inherently selfish? Are they just like?
No, I don't think so. I think it's I think there's sometimes I think in when we observe behaviors, the unusual things can pop out more. So I do think there are a good chunk of Britons, 60 to 70% of people, who are doing the things that we need to do. Yeah. We're wearing our masks, we're socially distancing, we're not seeing our family members. Right, we want to, and we're not mixing, and so I do think it's not all individuals who are doing that, and then I think there's a certain amount of individuals who are doing some of the strategies, but not all. I don't think it's the majority. Unfortunately, we need to be the majority who are doing the strategies, because that's the only way they work, and so we do have to get that percentage up. And so those are ways that we're really having to think. And I think, public health messages need to be stronger, really thinking about how we target individuals. If we know anything about those individuals, and that's one of the goals of the study, and we're going to be analyzing soon. Are there some individuals who just, are really struggling or just don't want to be able to do these strategies? And then how do we move that? How do we then target those individuals so that they do? So we can
and Ed Grossman's point is right. How do you depoliticize this? This isn't a politics. This is not politics. It's health.
Yeah.
And I
Public
loathe
health.
the way it's been hijacked. It's been hijacked. That's the only way you can say it.
How long
is your
really, isn't it?
Say again?
I mean, yeah, that's what it's turned into. And it really is trying to be able to flip that back to what it actually is, which is public health, and which is public health both for you, your family, and individuals you don't know. But that is, I mean, and I think that maybe that's the hard part that we need to we're having the disconnect. But a lot of us know that we want to be able to help others, to be able to leave their homes so we can all get, back out and doing things that we like, going to the cinema, whether you want to go out and eat, and not have to do it in this, circumscribed way.
Final question, because I can see Chantal Ricard's OBE in our digital green room. Is this how long is the study going to last? What's the plan?
Our plan is to go throughout the pandemic, so at least 12 months. We're collecting monthly data, so we have the daily polls as well as the monthly data. And so, to keep trying to understand, how the individuals are doing, and then feedback. Our results are on our social media, on our websites, and then our goal is then some of the charity sites. But we're really trying, so you can see what's happening, you can see what other individuals are telling you.
So if people want to get hold of all of this, what do they click onto? What can they look up?
So the easiest is probably Twitter, so @Attach Study, and then you can get to all of our links from there, or on Facebook, Attach COVID-19 Study.
And just
so how many participants would you ideally want? Because you've got 50.
I mean, as many as possible. I mean, our original goal was to be able to get at least 2,000, and as you can see, we're well on our way to that. So the more participants we can have, I think the more public policy. Somebody had asked that question. The more public policy we're able to
participate through the link.
Yes. Okay. So if they, so essentially all they need to do is, download the Air My Opinion app, and it's both in the Google Play Store or the App Store. And if they want to know more before they do that, they can go on to our website and learn more. But if you want to download it now, it's the Air My Opinion. And so you can let us know how you're doing, so we can share that with individuals.
I think that's fantastic. Anna Hood, you've been brilliant once again, so coherent, so articulate, and you've explained a lot, which I really, really appreciate. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if it's not a crazy phrase anymore, have a nice weekend. I always find the weekend's exactly the same as the rest of the week. So there you go. I'm kind of just being polite. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Bye-bye. Wow. Well,
lovely.
No time to chit chat. Now she's going to be a little bit.
Fine.
No, shush, just a minute. She's going to be a little bit upset. She's going to be a bit upset, and I'll tell you why. Because normally there's like music, all right? There's music.
Don't ask me
but
to sing for
there's not going to be any music. So try and just pretend we've done the music. If she comments, ignore it. Just pretend you can't hear. Ladies and gentlemen, in the digital green room now, live on your screens, Chantal Ricard's OBE.
No music?
Hello, Chantal.
No music?
There was music.
I mean, I expect.
Can you hear? Sorry. Could you hear it? No, we played it, didn't we, Alex? Did we not play fabulous music?
We played and we sang along to it.
I sang it. We waved our dust.
Chantal, no music.
we waved our dust. I can't believe you missed it, Chantal. Well,
no, I want music wherever I go. I have to say,
yeah, don't we all?
Some of your listeners may remember that I used to be the producer of Through the Keyhole, and literally wherever I went, because I would go to the people's homes to do a recce before I would then turn up with a film crew a few weeks later, and I was literally like the Queen, because every time I walked in, the smell of new paint was always all over the house. Lots of new furniture. Yes.
Wow.
So
I'll tell
yes,
you
I got.
a quick anecdote about Princess Diana. When Princess Diana unexpectedly, privately came to Capital Radio and didn't tell anybody, so she was sitting in our little and in the breakfast show little office, and people
Yeah.
walking by, God, that looks like Princess Di. Oh my God! And no one was told. Press office wasn't told. Marketing. She was just sitting in there with Mick Brown and Graham Dean and a few others, and she said, "Do you know what? This is the first place that I've been that doesn't smell of fresh paint. It's so refreshing."
Well, there you are.
So tickled that she could just go somewhere that didn't stink of new paint.
Yeah.
And then we didn't know what to give her for a gift. Right. This is the one. The Sultan of Brunei, a couple of weeks prior to her just popping in, because she was a fan of the show, bless her, had given her some like a necklace that was worth millions. So we're all looking at it, what the hell are we going to give? What are we going to give Princess Diana, the most famous woman on the planet? What can we possibly give her as a gift? Someone said, Capital T-shirt. So we went off, came back with a Capital T-shirt and a Capital sweatshirt. You'd think you'd given her the crown jewels again. She went, oh, I can wear this in my dance classes. She was genuinely so tickled. And you know the sweetest thing? Here he is, the most famous woman on the planet. She said, I love that song from Top Gun. I don't suppose you can play it. Look, I've made a cassette of it for you. Oh, yeah, Princess Diana brought in a cassette.
Wow.
She'd made of this tune she loved from the film Top Gun.
That's extraordinary.
And everyone said, we can do a little bit better. We'll play it from our own, we'll play it out, not from your little cassette. But amazing.
That's a great story. I've never heard you tell that story, Russ. That's fascinating.
Absolutely true. Anyway, boy, oh boy, Chantal, do we ever need cheering up this week? It's been a long ass week, as I like to say.
It has been a long ass week.
It really kind of has, and ups and downs, bumps in the road. What have you found for us?
Well,
your recommendations, may I just say, I go on about it. Trial of Chicago 7 I loved, and thank you for the BAFTA link. I sat there fully engrossed. Boy, oh boy, Aaron Doodad, what a brain box.
Oh, he's great.
Oh my God, what a
for
brain
those
box.
that don't know, that BAFTA will often do little seminars that are open to the public. So if you go on the BAFTA website, you can, at the moment, obviously it's all on Zoom, but you can log in just as a member of the public and benefit from all of those wonderful sort of evenings and Q&As that are being done with well-known people in the arts world. So you don't have to be a BAFTA member. You can just, sign in like an ordinary member of the public and benefit from those, just in case people don't know that.
It was very, very, it was very interesting. The part I found fascinating was the costumes. When Sacha Baron Cohen was talking about why he was wearing as A.B. Hoffman those costumes in the court. It was really interesting.
It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Fascinating.
I need you desperately, Chantal, because I have movie night once a week here.
Yep.
And I absolutely hate the pressure of having to pick a freaking film. Drives me nuts. Hate it. You cannot imagine. And then I get ridiculed horrendously by not picking anything that was any good. It's awful. Don't like it.
Right.
The pressure is just too much for me.
Okay, well, I've got some real crackers this week. I've got some real crackers for people to enjoy.
Yes, Russell?
I'm laughing at the pressure. I'm laughing at the pressures we put ourselves under. Like movie night goes from being something we should be really. Oh my God! No, now I'm under pressure.
Thrown across the room. Don't skip me.
Anyway, right, Chantal, off you go.
Okay, so something that started on Netflix just a few days ago is trending everywhere. It's got very, very high ratings on Rotten Tomatoes, which is one of those movie score systems that a lot of people in the industry look at. I think it's got something like 97 or 98% on Rotten Tomatoes, which basically means it's pretty damn good. And it's called The Queen's Gambit. It's a 7-part series on Netflix, and it's about a young girl who is orphaned at the age of, I think, 8, and has a fairly troubled upbringing. But it turns out that she is a chess genius. So at the boarding school where she's sent at the orphan's home, the caretaker teaches her how to play chess, and the story grows from there. It goes through her years post school, where she starts to go to competitions across America, but obviously the big one is going to Russia and becoming a grandmaster. And I'm not going to spoil it, but it's beautifully done. It looks wonderful. It's set in the 1960s, so as with a lot of those lovely Netflix programs set in the past, they're very good at costumes, they're very good at lighting, they're very good at sets, so it looks tremendous. An American-Argentinian actress called Anya Taylor-Joy plays the part of the young girl. She was educated in the UK, so actually when you hear her speak, she sounds actually like a Brit. So we can take a little bit of claim over her, because I think she's studied here for quite a long time. The young sort of love interest, who's one of the American grandmasters, is the boy, what do I say, he's not a boy anymore, but he was the boy in Love Actually, which I think everybody will remember.
Never saw it.
You never saw it?
He was one of the sons in the Durrells, wasn't he?
Well, he was a lovely young man who was probably then only 10, I would say. And there's a wonderful scene where he runs through the airport after the girl that he rather fancies at the local school. And it's a beautiful scene. But anyway, that's why most people would remember who this young man is, who plays the sort of love interest.
And then he went, anyway, as Alex said, did he go into the Durrells? Because I like the Durrells. I thought it was a charming series.
Durrells are good.
Yeah.
Durrells are good. I got up to the second series in the Durrells, but I didn't get any further than that.
It's nice. The ending's a bit meh, but it's very good, and she can do no wrong. Her name's gone right out of my head, but she can do absolutely no wrong in my mind. Now, this Queen's Gambit, because I've seen so much on social media, everyone's loving it. Is it film or is it a TV series?
No, it's a TV series. It's either 6 or 7 parts. I think it's 7 parts. So it's a very easy for a box set Saturday. If it's horrible weather tomorrow, and I think the weather forecast is abysmal for the next couple of days. So nobody needs to go out. Everybody should stay in, and that's a perfect box set. And it's really good. It's not completely obvious. There are lots of twists and turns along the way. It's not a thriller as such. It's just a really thumpingly good drama and very well written and worth watching.
People, the only reason it came to my attention was on social media, both on Twitter, especially on Facebook. People absolutely raving about this, which doesn't happen that often, because you've got such a huge, panoply of choice. So I wondered what it was. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm putting that on my list. Ed Grossman, he's so naughty. I'm going to do this. Ed Grossman. I went to a lecture, the BAFTA. I went to a lecture there. This is an accountant. Subject was tax avoidance, how to invest in productions. Loved it. We pleased everybody with all different aspects of life.
Well, I promise you, BAFTA had some interesting stuff
on Netflix. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So the next thing is on Sky, and definitely worth seeing. A lot of the previews of it were not terribly good, and I was feeling really sort of unhopeful for it. But I've watched the first episode, and it's definitely worth watching. The critics have now sort of caught up with it and think it's a pretty good watch too. And it's the sort of biggest thing on Sky, to be honest, because it's called The Undoing. It's a drama featuring Hugh Grant and Nicole Kidman. Who actually look very good together as a couple. I don't think they've acted together as far as I know. I can't remember anything they've both been in, but they're not dissimilar in age. They look great as a couple. He plays a British pediatric oncologist in New York. She plays a therapist who is trying to write a novel. It becomes a thriller, murder mystery quite quickly into the first episode. It all sort of starts off with a big fundraiser for the local school that all the children are at. But there's a mother who's part of this fundraising committee whose son is a scholarship kid, so not quite not as privileged as all of these other great New Yorkers. And then a thriller starts, and we don't quite know if everybody is really who they say they are, but it started incredibly well, and I am very hopeful that it's going to be a good series for Sky. So have a look for that. It's called The Undoing. So clearly somebody's going to be undone.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. I think it's
We had
keep-
Phil. We need Phil.
yeah.
We don't.
It was
we
written
don't. We don't need
just so
Phil.
that yeah,
Phil who?
the person behind it is a guy called David E. Kelly, and he did L.A. Law, Ally McBeal,
And
Boston Legal, Goliath, Chicago
Oh.
Hope, Big Little
and
Lies.
married to.
Not Candice Bergen, completely
No.
wrong. My brain's gone in the wrong direction. Um,
Married
Don't look
to.
at
If you think about, she was in Witches of Eastwick. She played. Al
Pfeiffer.
Pacino. Michelle
Michelle
Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer, well done. Misha, he indeed he was married to. I don't think he is any longer, but he was indeed
So
married.
Michelle's available.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's worth watching. But Sky being a bit mean, because we're sort of used to now suddenly being able to watch all 6 episodes at once. But that's not happening. So Sky are just drip feeding it. But anyway, I think it's going to be worth hanging on for. That's going to become, if there were a water cooler moment, that's what people are going to be talking around the water cooler this week.
Isn't it interesting how? And here's a question for you, Chantal. That we're so used to, appointment viewing, that's gone out the window, and now we're just used to be able to watch a whole boom. We can watch 12 episodes, and suddenly when you're deprived, when that's not available, it's like, oh, hang on, it's 1958 again. Wait for the Sunday night at the London Palladium. It feels very odd.
It feels very odd. You're right. We've become rather impatient. And that's, just because the way that technology has worked, and we don't work in weeks and seasons and series and the autumn schedule and the winter schedule. It's all a bit sort of nonsensical these days.
Don't you think when you they call it binge watching, but I would just say it's continuous watching. Don't you think it helps the narrative of the story? It helps the pace, that helps your enjoyment, because you like when you're on your recommendation, when I watched series 1 of Goliath, one of the best things I've seen in like forever. I couldn't wait because the story it's so exciting, and it really helped my enjoyment that I was able to go into, the next show.
Yeah, I completely agree.
My
I'm a binge watcher. I think binge watching was absolutely made for me. I was so excited the first time that, I got my Netflix, and I thought, hurrah, hurrah, I can just sit here uninterrupted and go through it from beginning to end, just as I do with a book. Once I'm into a book, that's it. I can't put it down. I just have to read it until I finish it.
If it's a really good series, it's like watching one big movie, isn't it? All at once. But then I get really sad when it's finished.
Yeah, indeed.
That's the power. That's the power of the entertainment industry, that it moves you, and you feel like when you get to the end of a really good film, a really good book, rather, you think, oh, what am I going to do now? Yeah. Whereas I couldn't wait to struggle to the end of the last J.K. Rowling book, which was my personal mission. 900 pages. I'm not even going to go there. Anyway, how they got away with it, God knows. What's next?
Anyway, so, I thought then we ought to have something that stretches one's brain a bit. I'm actually becoming a great fan of documentaries on Sky. They weren't really known for documentaries, but now actually they either make their own very good documentaries, or they have good documentaries coming in from HBO, which is an American cable network. And something that it's a 1.5 hour documentary called The Perfect Weapon. And it sounds like, I probably wouldn't ever watch that. But actually it's about cybercrime over the last 10 years, and it's completely fascinating. Again, it was something that I started. I thought I should watch this. I need to know about this stuff, and I was completely dragged into this extraordinary story of cybercrime across the world that goes from Iran to Hollywood to the Ukraine to Russia to the last American election, this American election. And it's like a thriller in its own right. And it's very well done. It's very pacey. It's a lot of talking heads. But the way that they explain cybercrime makes it completely fascinating. A lot of it was around, some of your viewers and listeners will remember that Sony had a big, Sony televisions had a big bust up with the Koreans when Seth Rogen made a film about a comedy about killing Kim Jong-il. And of course, it was a comedy. It went down like a proverbial cup of cold sick. And then An extraordinary cybercrime happened to Sony. One can presume how that started, and I'm not going to spill the beans on it. But lots of leaked memos happened, leaked memos from the top, describing Angela Jolie as a spoiled, talentless actress. All sorts of terrible things happened to Sony. But that's just one of the stories in this 90 minutes. And it's a really good watch. And it sounds like something that you just wouldn't be interested in.
No,
but
I
I'd
would.
advise
No, I'd
anybody
find it.
not to watch.
I'd find it real. I find those things. These new I'd say these new documentaries are kind of the new wave, if we could say, Chantal, of documentaries.
Yeah.
They seem to be so much more engaging, don't they? They have what am I trying to say? They have a movie quality to them.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think
And
they
actually,
have a movie. Yeah, they feel like films, don't they?
Yeah, traditionally, we never really used to rate American documentaries because actually the Brits are the best documentary makers in the world, without doubt.
Yep.
But the Americans have caught up fast. They've taken a lot of our documentary making practices, and they now make really good, challenging documentaries, a lot of which go straight to cinema as well, like the Michael Moore type of thing. He really started that idea of a big feature film documentary, and this is very similar to that. So definitely worth watching. And it's called The Perfect Weapon, and it's on Sky Documentaries.
Here's my Angelina Jolie anecdote. When she made
how many have you got?
You name how long you got. When she was making Tomb Raider, there's a scene where all she has to do is come down a staircase.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be in a grand place. And they use Dulwich College, a place that you know intimately well. So you will know, Chantal, the staircase that comes from the Great Hall down to the lower hall, as it's called.
I know it.
You know that? And it's got a high thing. All she's got to do is walk down those stairs that I have walked a million times, right? Didn't like the color of the paint. Didn't like the color of the... True. Didn't like the color of the paint. Insisted that Dulwich or the film people had to paint this. She's walking down the steps. It's not Battleship Potemkin steps. She's walking down the steps. So they painted it all. And then when the scene was finished, Dulwich had to put it back to the normal color. Swear to God. Down from the Great Hall to the lower hall.
That's a good story.
Well, that's true as well.
Which movie was it, Russ?
That was for one of the
Tomb Raider.
Tomb Raiders. Yeah, one of the Tomb Raider movies.
Okay. Yeah.
And Andrea Lucas says, thanks to you. You see, people really hang on your every word. They do. Watch Roadkill all the way through, thanks to Chantal.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
And I don't know what Roadkill was. Do you want to remind us?
It was the Hugh Grant film, the Hugh Grant TV series. Not Hugh Grant, Hugh Laurie.
Oh, the Hugh Laurie one. Yes.
Oh, no, I've not seen that.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I watched the opening bit because I had to say when he comes out, and he was just like, it was just genius. He's coming out of court, isn't he? And I thought it was just bloody marvelous. Okie dokie.
So yes, the week can't go past without talking about Borat. So I'm going to give you the full title of the film. I have to read it because I haven't memorized it. The film is called Borat: Subsequent Movie Film, Delivery of Prodigious Bribe to American Regime for Make Benefit Once Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan. Which is definitely the longest film title I've ever had to deliver.
Never known.
Indeed. And the original Borat, as I think some people will remember, I think was 14 or 15 years ago.
Was it really?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was 2006, very long time ago. And comedy character that he plays the part of a Kazakh journalist. But when we meet him now, 14 years later, he is a disgraced journalist who has been locked up for bringing shame to Kazakhstan in the first Borat movie. And he has been in a gulag somewhere for 14 years and then comes back to the family home to find a daughter who, when he left, was I think, a baby of 1 or 2 and now is a rather pulchritudinous daughter of 16 with an attitude to match. But she's been locked in a cage, inevitably. There's some sort of backstory that's completely silly. But off they go to America, initially to deliver the Minister of Culture, that is a monkey called Johnny the Monkey, to Donald Trump as a gift. Anyway, the monkey doesn't quite make it, so
Oh.
he decides to try and sort of doll up his daughter as a gift for Donald Trump. That is a very loose premise of a very, very silly film. I can only say I watched half the movie. So for viewers who can see the screen now, the reason I only watched half the movie is because I watched it through my fingertips. I could literally only see half the screen. It was so excruciating. Not bad, because it's just scurrilous and naughty and beyond ridiculous. But there are moments in it where you think, I just cannot watch these real life people make utter idiots of themselves, because that was
That's how I watched the first movie. I watched the first movie in the cinema. I was like, this.
Yeah. So
I watched 10 minutes last night and I didn't carry on.
Yeah. Well, sadly, there are lots of Americans who don't get the joke in the same way that we might get the joke, including Rudy Giuliani, who is Donald Trump's lawyer, who is featured at the very end of the film in what looks like a compromising position in a hotel bedroom where he was taking off his microphone. I can only leave it up to the viewer to decide how scurrilous they thought that was. But it's very naughty. It's, as ever with Sacha, it's challenging. You know, it's funny. It just demands a lot of the viewer, to be honest. But if you like that sort of thing, he's a master. He's an absolute master. My kids watched it. You know, I think, Russ, you and I have sons of roughly the same age. They also thought it was completely scurrilous and completely over the top, but they were laughing like drains. So what can I tell you? If Borat's your thing, you got to watch it.
I'd have to be brave myself, because it makes me literally, even though I'm watching it with just the dog on an occasion, I'm like, and I'm like you. If I had the sweater to pull up, I would do it or watch it through this, isn't it? Yes. Now, Ed Grossman, quick question. No, it's on. I think it's on Amazon.
Amazon Prime.
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon. It's got 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, which the people who are watching it are really enjoying it. So it's on Amazon. I think it's also in the cinema. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it is. And it's worth a watch.
I don't know how he is so brave. I really don't know how he is. He has no limits. He has no boundaries at all, does he? As a performer,
no.
None.
Very, very clever. I mean, it's just the unbelievable piss take is beyond comprehension, really.
Yeah.
Are they using body doubles in that? Because I read somewhere that's not the real Giuliani. It was somebody.
I don't think so. I mean, I think the whole premise is that Sacha does stuff that's real. I mean, clearly the characters are fake characters, but everybody else is real, and they are duping real people. They're not making a comedy drama as such. Those are real people in the situations that have been created, and the situations are false, but what happens isn't. He also, I don't know if anybody has seen the posters, but I heard you talking about masks earlier on with your previous guest, and there are several rather challenging posters of Sacha wearing absolutely nothing at all, literally naked, except for a blue mask over his nether regions. So at least he's wearing a mask.
It's he gets away with it, and he pushes boundaries that you did not think were physically possible. What astounds me about that film is that, although it was, you said 2006, feels like to me like it was last week, that they still don't see this coming.
No.
And you know, if I saw Borat coming, I'd know I'm about to be set up, kind of thing. That's unbelievable. There.
Yeah. That's why a lot of the gags rely on the daughter character, who's a young Bulgarian actress who's actually extremely good, straight out of theatre school. She's very, very good. Because a lot of people that you'll see at the beginning of the film, people recognise him when he's walking down the street.
Oh, they must do, because he was on every blooming chat show. When you look at the old Conan O'Brien's or any of those things, Jimmy Fallon, I'm not sure about Jimmy Fallon, but I think he did the other ones. And there he is. You know, there he is. We've got 60 seconds now, Chantal.
Come on. Give me a film.
Well, 60 seconds isn't enough, but I'm going to do it in 60 seconds to tell you about the film that won the Oscar last year called Parasite. It's
yes.
just come onto Amazon. It's called, as I said, Parasite. It's a South Korean film. It is incredibly good. It challenges you in lots of ways. It's about a family that moves in with another family. One is they are the workers for the very rich family. It's called Parasite for a reason. It's disturbing. It's brilliantly written, and it's got to be watched. Everybody should see it. It's a wonderful film.
Do you know what? I saw it and I put it. Funny enough, I put that. I thought I'm just not in the mood yet, but I totally want to do it. Chantal Rickards, OBE. Thank you so much. Really
Great
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Happy watching.
Thank you. Bye bye. Bye now.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Wow. That's it.
Parasite, that's the film.
We are out of time. Thank you very much, Karen White Haggerty. That is a lovely thing. My special thanks, and I don't take it for granted, Alex. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you to all our guests. Until Monday. Bye.
Bye.